Hello, 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 and welcome to the Bada Bin program. I am one of your hosts, Dave, and down there in that other corner is my good pal, Chris. Chris, it's a beautiful
Hey, hey,
Monday. I
Monday,
am.
TGIM.
That was yeah. Hashtag. I'm getting very confused by when we're getting together now, and it's all my fault. You know,
Vacations are squirrely and wibbly.
this is very true. Okay, and that's the
hmm
whole thing. I'm in my vacation cool down, the
hmm
last official day of my vacation, and I return to work
Ugh.
to tomorrow. So, hence
Mm.
why we are here today to try to sneak in an episode, the quick turnaround, and talk to the fine folks on the intrawebs about comics and
hmm
crazy stuff in life, which we have in abundance, both. I'd like to think,
It's
yeah.
true.
So,
It's
but that
true.
is,
A nice long vacation,
oh,
huh?
buddy. Oh, pal. It's been 9 days. This is day number 9. I should have made it an
Oof.
even 10, really. I don't know what I was thinking.
Why not?
I know.
Why not?
Um, but I would like to.
I never,
What's that?
I never used to do that myself.
What?
When I was working out of the house, my vacations were always like long weekends.
Okay.
Like I could never do like the full week, the full 5 days and then the weekend caps on either end. Because I was a self-important jackass who thought like the company couldn't last without me.
Yeah, I know what that feels
Even though
like.
I was like just a peon, nobody, nothing. It's like, oh, I wasn't here where I was here. Really, not much changed.
Hmm.
Um, and the other one is like, like the day you're having right now. Like East Coasters of our vintage would get this, but it feels like Jerry Lewis should be on TV all day.
Okay.
Like it's Labor Day. It's the last day before school starts, and it's like the worst day of the year.
You know,
I never wanted to have one of those as an adult.
it's funny you brought up like people from our vintage East Coast, whatever, because you
Mhm.
just brought up a marathon. Do they even have marathons on
Oh
TV
yeah.
anymore?
Do they even have TV anymore?
They do, but I don't think an all day marathon to raise money for charity is still like an
Or telethon?
there we go, telethon, marathon. I'm talking about running.
Yeah.
We just watched 12 straight hours of Jerry Lewis booking down the street. He's like,
Yeah.
you gotta catch me. Yeah.
Lady.
Lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but something I do definitely want to recommend, despite the fact that you just gave a history of your vacations completely sucking because
hmm
you're a moron,
Yes.
if you do take a vacation, an important thing, and especially because I traveled, is the cool down
You need
period.
a cool down.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
hmm
yes, yes, yes.
hmm
So, having been away for like 4 or 5 days and being home for 4 or 5 days before you get back into everything is great,
Good
dude.
balance. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's like tempering an egg. You ever temper an
no, I don't
egg?
even know what that is. Please inform me.
Okay, it's when you're making something that has like you're making something with a hot batter kind of,
Mm-hmm.
and you put an egg into it for emulsification. If you put an egg directly into it,
Mm.
it's going to scramble.
Okay.
It's going to instantly turn into scrambled eggs in the pile of your whatever sweet treat you're trying to make. So you need to temper it. So you put some of the warm into the egg, you mix it up, you put a little bit of the egg in there, you mix it up, you kind of temper it. You temperate it so it doesn't scramble.
Okay.
So that's kind of what you did with your vacation. You're tempering yourself so you're not going straight from blissful beach time to
Wow.
punching a clock or just monotonous work time.
That is some I would have never thought of that in a million years.
There you go. You tempered your
Yeah,
egg.
I just call it a cool down period. That's the most sophisticated answer I could give, and you just freaking went, Chef Ramsay or
if
whatever
you
on us there.
if you're making eggnog, eggnog is where as I've made eggnog a few times where it is curdled scrambled eggs in slop. It's an art.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I don't cook, so there you go. I know nothing of it. So this is not a cooking show, though,
Now you know
Chris. All
something.
right. So curb it. All
Sorry.
right. Go wear the apron somewhere else and start talking about. I don't know, the most sophisticated thing I can make is a.
I like to knead my comics history into things. Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say the most I can make is French toast, and it's probably terrible, just absolutely horrible. So I don't know. But anyway, what else is
You
going
got
on with you,
if you
man?
use Hawaiian if you use those Hawaiian loaves, that's something
I,
special.
no. Look at you. I can't stop you. I'm trying to change the subject, and you just keep wanting to talk
Okay,
about it.
go on, go
I was
on.
like, what's going on with you, man? So, anyway, Hawaiian rolls, if you dip them in batter and temper them,
Mm, that's something.
it's going
Put
to
some coconut flake
it's,
on it.
it's gonna be great. So, we kind of forgot to talk about this pre-show, but I
Hmm.
kind of want to hop into a topic now.
Okay.
Because this is how the sausage is made. Me and Chris might kind of shoot the breeze for a few minutes before we hit that go live
Hmm.
button, but we never really
Hmm.
decided the order in which we talk about things.
True.
so,
True. It's just an oleo.
so
Yeah.
there you go. We're just riffing, and plus we get the quick turnaround. So we're
Yep.
sloppy jalopies. But I wanted to
Hmm.
get into comics or magazines.
Oh, those things.
Yeah, surprise, hello, lady, that bring you back to those moments. Hopefully, I would think in your youth
Hmm.
that just made you start collecting or fall in love with the medium in the first place, and basically
Seminal. Yeah.
seminal,
Seminal books.
right? Just and now, God, I don't want to date ourselves by saying how many decades later, but a long time later,
Hmm.
you look at them, you open them, you smell them, whatever the case may be here, and they bring you right back, baby. You just enter the
Hmm.
vortex of happiness and nostalgia.
Yep.
Now, I don't know if you want to lead off or if you want me to go or what the deal may be here, but I'm just rambling
Oh,
on, so feel free to jump in.
you can go
And
ahead.
oh, really? So, me and Chris have both selected books that.
Age before
Oh,
beauty.
okay. Ouch. Um, that totally bring us back to that sweet spot in our lives.
Hmm.
And then for me, it may be surprising for some folks out there since we do primarily talk about comics, but I do believe last time out, one of the things I brought up is my absolute love for satire and parody and Mad Magazine and Cracked
Hmm.
too.
Yep.
And when I was a youngster, road trips. I guess this is on theme with my vacation.
There you go.
Nowadays, kids have cell phones and Nintendo Switches and whatever to occupy their mind and time. We had comics, we had magazines, we had, I remember those long
Hmm.
Garfield collections, like
Oh
Garfield
yeah.
Gets
Yeah.
Fat or whatever. And like those,
Garfield at
there you
Lodge.
go.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things that would sit with you in the back seat and you'd read them over and over and over again until you
Oh
got to your
yeah.
vacation. And then, in my case, we were always poor growing up, so we were always camping. It'd be with me in the tent, and I'd be reading it
Yep.
by
Reading it at
flashlight.
night.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I just read it 6 or 7 times on the road trip here, and now I'm just doing it all
Hmm.
over again. And one trip in particular, my grandmother was with us. We're in, I don't know, some kind of supermarket or something, and on the shelf was sitting a Mad Magazine with a very popular character of the era, considering it just hit the movie screens, in E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
Hey, him.
Yeah, and E.T. looks nice and good, so she thinks, oh, well, what's the harm in giving a kid this? Well, Nana, surprise! You created a lifelong fan of Mad Magazine and probably influenced the way I see things and my humor to this day. And Mad Magazine, specifically issue 236, cover dated January 1983, was my first exposure to Alfred E. Newman, or the first time, rather, he exposed himself to me. And
Hmm.
it has a fantastic cover, which I just showed on screen, but Chris, I'm going to show to you here as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what kid would not be absolutely hooked by
There you
something
go.
like this when they see it on a rack in a supermarket or whatever, wherever you see it, smoke shop. I like bringing up smoke shops because kids should not be there, but yet again, kids of our vintage, we were in there buying
Yep.
comics and
We had the
magazines.
Tayamos. Yep.
But man, oh
Hmm.
man, man alive, every time I see this, it just brings me back to sitting in that back seat. Life is ahead of me. There's no negativity, nothing bad. The troubles of life have yet to crash upon me like a wave of doom. And this is just absolute innocence and joy in magazine form. Plus, I mean, another thing about Mad, which is appealing, a lot of kids, their first exposure to comics is strips,
Sure.
So along with movie parodies, you'd have like the lighter side of, you'd have Spy versus Spy, and
Hmm.
juvenile humor. That just really always hit the spot. So for me in particular, this issue of Mad Magazine is worth a billion, trillion, gazillion tempered dollars. Can never be replaced, and I love it wholeheartedly.
And it just looks special.
You think so?
I mean, you don't see stuff like the cover just looks special. It's you don't see even like current day Mad
Mm-hmm.
for whatever it is. It doesn't look like that.
Well, current day
It feels
Mad.
like the soul has left the body a little bit.
That's a funny way to put it. I was gonna say current day Mad. What is that? Because it's all basically reprints with a new
Reprints,
cover
yeah,
on it.
with like a new cover.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. And Mad.
yeah,
Okay, real quick, let me get into the weeds here a little bit. Something
sure.
that's brilliant that Titan Comics has done with Savage Sword of Conan was they completely
Hmm.
understood the assignment. So it's a magazine size book and it's in black and white. And the
Okay.
story itself, it's only been 2 issues. It's okay.
Hmm.
Has a Solomon Kane backup story, give or take, whatever. It's again, okay. It's not great, not going to change the
Yeah.
world, but the lure of that original Savage Sword of Conan run being touched upon once again and being back is just brilliant. Brilliant. Like they
Hmm.
knew this is what the fans want. They want the old school magazine. They don't want a regular comic
Hmm.
sized book called Savage Sword of Conan.
And they don't want him in the Avengers.
No, he's no longer with Marvel, and I was going to bring that up. That's what Marvel did wrong was they made it a regular
Yeah,
comic book, and it was like, guys,
it was nothing
you
special.
guys had it
Yeah.
right the first time. When you got Conan
Hmm.
back, you decided to, well, we're going to do it
Integrate.
comic book format. Yeah, he's going to be in Savage
Yeah.
Avengers, whatever. But I mean, that's neither here nor there, just compared to the format. Now, back
Sure.
to Mad real quick. When Mad went to color and gloss and everything else, you're like, did they need that? No, I don't think it was
Mm-mm.
necessary. And
When was that?
oh boy, I want to say that was
Like what decade?
when I was leaving Mad because I was too into hooking up with girls and partying, man.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna say that was in the '90s.
90s.
Yeah, that must
Hmm.
have been mid '90s. But I'm just guessing.
Hmm. When everything started going glossy.
Yeah, I mean, yet again, I'm just guessing because Mad Magazine was a
Hmm.
staple of my youth to the point where me and my friend actually sent in our own version of Mad Magazine to
Hmm.
Bill Gaines and actually received a letter back with some
Oh
paraphernalia
wow.
and a year subscription. And
Very
this was like
nice.
1985, 1986, and there was nothing cooler that could happen to a child than to get a letter from the publisher saying, "Hey guys, you're
Hmm.
not there yet, but keep going with it, and before you know it, someday you'll be working for me. And by the way, here's some free stuff." I mean, it was just like, "What? Seriously?" And
Hmm.
God knows.
Then you get to stand by the mailbox every day for a week at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Like, where is it? Where is it? Where is
Well,
it?
it's funny you should say that because I could not tell you for the life of me now how long it took from submission, sending in our little stapled together magazine to the actual response
Sure.
from William Gaines Jr. It probably was a few months, but just you didn't expect to get anything at all. I mean, at that
Sure.
age, it was probably like, yeah, we're going to be superstars. Someone there is going to read this and go,
Of
these
course.
guys are hilarious. They
They got
yes,
this.
they deserve their own segment. I remember one cartoon in particular. I drew it, and it was the stupidest thing ever. It was just like two guys playing soccer. A guy gets
Mhm.
hit in the face with a soccer ball, and like a bone comes out of his nose. And we're like, ah, that's great. Oh my god, that's hilarious. It's gory. It's who doesn't love some violence?
Yeah.
Where the hell you think Tom and Jerry came from? This is the best stuff ever. So, but yeah, Mad Magazine will always have a special place in my heart. But I did abandon it in the early '90s
Mhm.
because I was too busy being cool, man.
Too cool for it. Yeah, and you don't collect the reprints now, right? The new
I,
ones,
I
the quote unquote
I
new
did for
ones.
a little bit when they switched from new material into reprints. I was like, well, I mean, let's revisit some memories. I mean, it can't be that
Sure.
bad. But then I just kind of fell
Was
off. I stopped reading it. I was getting it. I was paying for it,
just piling it.
and yeah, it was
Yeah.
just stacking up. And I'm like, oh, I think.
Was that a they renumbered it too, right?
Well, they relaunched it. I want to say what was that
Yeah,
like
okay.
2018 or something. Yet
I
again, I
remember
could
you
be wrong.
mentioning that back then. I don't remember exactly
Right,
when.
but when they relaunched it, it wasn't reprints. It was still
Still new.
new material, and then
Okay.
yeah, it just slowly started to
Mm.
curdle and die, and that's when they made the announcement it was just going to be all reprints, and that's when, like I said, I was going to stick with it, but then eventually I'm like,
Sure.
damn, I'm not even reading it anymore.
Yeah.
Come on,
It's
man.
so. I mean, you figure like Mad would be like not a very expensive magazine to make. You figure, right? You figure people be lining up to just do like a little work, even cheaper, free. It's weird that they would abandon it the way they did. It's
It
unfortunate.
is unfortunate, and being such an integral part of my childhood, and I mentioned how it kind
Sure.
of like helped mold my humor and
Hmm.
my belief system in the world. There's a few things that I can go back in time and just pinpoint and go, that was a key, whatever item. That was something that really hit me
Hmm.
hard and was very
Sure.
very influential on me. Is the word I
Hmm.
was just searching for. The,
Sure.
the
Sure.
hamster was
Yeah,
running in
it
the wheel there.
informed your point of
There we
view.
go.
Yeah.
And Mad Magazine and Crack too. I know there's a
Hmm.
divide there. Some people say, man, Crack suck compared to Mad, but you got to realize that a lot of the talent actually ping ponged
Oh, I'm
back and
sure.
forth.
Yeah.
And plus, John Severin was on Cracked, and his art was just
Hmm.
bellissimo. Now he wasn't any Mort
He
Drucker.
was a Western guy, right?
He
Like he
did
was.
comics
Okay.
wise, yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
people know his sister Marie from the Hulk stuff.
Marie.
But yeah, he was most notably known for westerns. But I mean, he was such a realistic style that when he would do
Sure.
movie parodies and stuff like that in Cracked, it was
He'd knock it out.
he'd knock it out. But it was very different to Mort Drucker or Angelo Torres of Mad,
Hmm.
who would be a little bit more cartoonish with it. I guess be the best
Sure.
way or
Sure.
most apt way to describe it.
Yeah.
And I guess that's not for everybody either. Some people would. I mean, Mort Drucker is held upon the Mount Rushmore of the satire artists and parodies and stuff,
Hmm.
and rightly so. But John Severin also deserves place on that plateau. So I feel like
Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
rambling about Mad though.
I was never into Mad or
Oh, you
Cracked
suck.
or any. I do suck for many
Mm.
reasons, but this is just one of them. I always thought they were. I always thought they were ugly.
Really?
Yeah, like I would see them and it's just like, ugh, that's kind of ugly. Um, but even with that said, I do even growing up, I recognized the importance of it.
Hmm.
And when you told me that it was going all reprints, it felt like a part of the industry died.
Yeah.
It felt like just another reminder that time moves forward and not everything comes with it, which is sad.
Yeah.
It's just the realities of periodicals and publications and just the way the world's going. It's it's unfortunate.
Mm. It,
Like why wouldn't they just do it like even just as a digital magazine, with new stuff? How hard could that be?
well,
Just to keep it alive in a way.
yeah, I can understand that, but how many people would read it if it was digital? Um,
Oh, sure.
I know I probably wouldn't, to be honest with you, despite my love for Mad. It's a hard
Of
sell
course.
because as
Hmm.
easy it is to have your phone and just be sitting in bed and whatever.
Yeah.
We're all moths to a
It's
flame
not the same.
now, so we want something
Yeah.
quick and easy and stuff. It's not like
Yeah.
yeah, it wouldn't be the same. So it's almost as if you had it digital. This is my opinion only.
Hmm.
It's like having reprints anyway. You're just putting
Okay.
lipstick on a pig until you throw it 6 feet under. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
Um,
Fair
but in,
enough.
in just kind of relating real quick back to parody and satire and whatever, whether it was Mad Magazine, Crack Magazine, National Lampoon, on, you
Hmm.
need material like that out there in the world to not to be like fight the power man, but question authority and question.
Oh, yeah. We're not allowed to do that anymore, are
Well,
we?
hey man, I'm telling you, just like
It's different.
and the way to do it is to make fun of companies that are obviously taking advantage of us. Or I remember in the '80s, like them
Sure.
always like knocking because the environment was a big deal. Toxic waste and cigarettes and things like that, and it's like, wow,
Sure.
that's so great and it's so spot on. It's true, you know.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
to see it die is a sad thing. But yet again, I did abandon it for girls, man. So who am
Hmm.
I to talk? All right,
There you go.
chicks don't dig
Yeah.
dudes who read Mad Magazine. Come on, hello.
Boy.
Yeah.
I must apologize. My allergies are killing me today. Don't know what's going on, but it's the time of year, I guess.
Okay.
So if I go on mute or if I grunt, I apologize. It might be very off-putting.
Well,
But
can we put you in a bubble?
what are you gonna do? I need to be in a
Tarp your
bubble with the
house.
mooks. Yeah.
Well, there's another important thing that influenced my humor. Seinfeld, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I have rambled on. Verbal diarrhea. You've just let it come out of me like a volcano of uselessness.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of me talking about the usual gang of idiots, how about we move on to your sweet spot comic, something that
Sure.
brings you absolute joy beyond compare.
Absolutely. Yeah, when we were talking about putting this segment as a at least a semi-regular piece, because yeah, I think we took what was it? Sean, I think, said it last time that we seemed very angry,
Yeah, we're
that we
grumpy.
seemed very
Mm.
down, we're grumpy, and we are. I mean, everybody has the right to be grumpy, um, but we also want to make it clear that we this is something we care deeply about, and there are things in it that remind us of that. For better or for worse, good things, bad things, just things that bring us back to the gestalt of when we were forming our opinion
Mm-hmm.
and just how we fell in love with this art form and this medium. And the book for me, one of the books for me, but the one I wanted to start with is Uncanny X-Men number 308. I think it came out late 1993, so I'd been reading comics for about 3 or 4 years at this point. But it was with this book that comics changed for me. And that's saying something because in the interim, I mean, the death of Superman happened, which was highly influential. You know, it was something that changed a lot of people's point of view on what comics could be and what they are, and the sort of stories they can tell and the emotional impact they can have. But I mean, I was in 1993, I was 13. So I was still young, still dumber than I am now. Maybe not as dumb as I am now, but dumb. And I really couldn't grasp the full breadth of what a comic book could do. Having read things like The Death of Superman, I knew the thing with Death of Superman, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but as important a story as that was, I think even as an 11 or 12-year old, I knew it was a gimmick.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's no way he was dead forever.
And I mean, and you knew it was just a thing to get news, to get
Mm-hmm.
sales, to get the frenzy of collectors and speculators. Even as a young child, I could see
Right.
through it.
Yeah.
So it was an event in need of a story rather than a story in need of an event. Um, this issue of Uncanny X-Men is one where I mean, the quick and dirty of it is Jean Grey proposes to Scott Summers. They've been on again, off again for 3 decades at this point. You know, she'd been dead. Scott's been married. His wife was a clone of her. All a big mishigas. And you know, Cable was there. They realized Cable was the son, and it was very weird time, a weirder time for the X Men. But the important thing to me was that the day that the comic took place was Thanksgiving, which has always been a very special day for me. Mostly out of this Pollyannish want for a family, you know. Um, and the entire issue is Scott and Jean walking the grounds of the Institute, and they're talking and they're catching up and they're just sharing all the recent happenings. And like you'll see like Beast and Banshee are like putting together like a touch football game, and like they're jumping into leave piles and just all this really mundane stuff that I had yet to see. As I mean, I missed the Claremont era, so I didn't see the regular baseball games, the softball games, or whatever that they'd have. So this was my first exposure to that sort of thing, and it showed me that comics could be more than just the punchy run, as some people call it. It wasn't just act. It wasn't any action. It was just a very warm and heartfelt story. And around that time, like even Professor X was kind of dealing with his sort of resonant feelings toward Jean. So like when they come and announce it, like you get a look at his face, and he's kind of crestfallen, but he's also kind of proud. And it's just a very special issue, and it's one of those. I think a lot of us of our vintage who started reading young um, have a few books where we can actually pinpoint exactly where we were when we read them.
Right.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, you talked about the smell of the comic, but sometimes you can smell, the sauce cooking on the stove. You can put yourself in that spot. And I remember going to the comic store, picking up this issue, not expecting much of it because it was just another issue of X Men. I liked it, but it wasn't like life changing at that
Right.
point. And after the comic store, it was a Friday night, and my mother and father would go. We would drive like four towns over because they get gyros people say heroes. I'm from New York. I say gyro. Those Greek things that
Yeah, I know. It's the big
roast
debate.
roast me up.
Gyro, gyro, hero. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I say gyro.
Okay.
I say most things wrong anyway. But I remember I was in our Ford Aerostar minivan in the back, and I was reading this thing by flashlight. And and the thing about the gyro place is like it would take forever because this was like the only gyro place on Long Island, I guess.
Okay.
So uh, like my dad would go in and he'd order them, and it would like take like a half hour, 45 minutes with these damn gyros. And I'm probably exaggerating, but I remember reading this thing like 3 or 4 times in the back of the Ford Aerostar with a flashlight because it just blew me away. It changed the language of comics for me forever, and it made me realize what comics could be. And it's what gives Scott Lobdell a lifetime pass for me. I mean, he could write the story of him drop kicking my dog across the street, and I'd read it. You know, or he could drill a hole in my head, and I'd give it 10 out of 10.
Okay.
No, not
Whoa,
quite
whoa,
that. Not
slow
quite that.
down.
Yeah, I don't do that. But it was such a it was like mind blowing how it just changed everything from that point on to where it became the gold standard for me.
Wow.
And anytime I would see something sort of like that, it would always, fairly or not, it would get compared to 308. And it was phenomenal. Just amazing stuff. And I read it. I bought I think I might even have it within reach.
Okay.
Where the hell is it? This one here. Yeah, I found this at a record store a few years ago, probably about 5 years ago, and it has the issue in it. I think it doesn't open with it. It has the wonderful Empyrean issue to start it, but I mean it's in here, um, and I read it.
Sounds heavy.
It
You
is
just
heavy.
drop
It
it's
is
like
heavy.
boom.
Yeah, it's a 34.99 book. I probably got it for like
Okay,
$3,
great.
but yeah, but I read this probably, geez, when was it? 2015. I got this and I read it, and reading it, I started tearing up.
Wow.
Not because it's a sad story, because it's not, but it just took me back, and it like, it was like the quantum leap accelerator. Like I was just sucked through and I slammed into a damn wall.
Yeah.
I was like, oh God, this really messed me up. And I even did an episode of Chris's on Infinite Earths about it, probably 2019, 2020ish. And again, it messes me up because it's just that important to me. It's just a wonderful, wonderful issue. If people haven't read it and you have any affinity toward the X-Men, definitely check this one out. I mean, I'm a weirdo when it comes to comics. I'm a weirdo in many ways,
Sure. Yeah, aren't we all?
but but there's that saying, the sins of the father, will yada yada on the son. For me, it's the sins of the son will yada yada on the father. So I think the X-Men absolutely suck right now. So it's hard for me to pick this up and enjoy it because all it does is remind me of how crappy it is right now. So it's the same reason I can't read the Peter David Hulk anymore,
Damn.
because I can't enjoy it because I know how things are now.
Chris, we've had this discussion off air
We
so
have,
many times.
and we will probably many times
Yes,
again.
yes. And so let's kind of like jump into it now. I'm rubbing my face in
Sure.
frustration. You've done it to me, man. Just because, for me personally, something may not be great now, but thank God we have the bins, right? I mentioned to you, I like to pray at the altar of the bins. It's there. So that memory, that moment in time is always there for you to enjoy it, dig it up, is great. To relate it to what is happening now is just completely, it's almost like you talk about the sins of the father. To do that, we're talking generations apart. You know what I mean?
Oh, easy.
So,
Yeah. No, I understand.
so yeah, so for me, it's just like I can't do that. And I if what's frustrating to me is that you feel that way because I want you to feel joy. I want you to feel the same
Of
happiness that I
course.
feel. knowing that,
Hmm.
dude, I did not like the Al Ewing Hulk at all. I am one of the few people on the
Hmm.
face of the earth just couldn't stand it, couldn't tolerate it, didn't like it, stopped buying it. But that PAD run and that Jeff Purves,
Hmm.
the Joe Fixa era is my all-time favorite.
Yep.
It's just sitting in that box over there, baby. I can dig it out,
Oh, it's
and,
phenomenal.
and I'm back. I'm home. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And there's no thoughts creeping into
I
my mind how bad I think the Hulk is now. Yeah,
I can't
man.
separate it. It's like it's one of the things I understand,
Mm.
but I don't believe. You know, I rationally I get it because it makes total sense. I'm being
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous, but I can't make myself believe it. It remember 2011, New 52, where everyone's like, nobody's taking those stories away. They're right there on your shelf. Well, F you. F you. You made them meaningless.
Well.
You made them not matter. I mean, we know we're reading fiction,
Mm-hmm.
but now we're reading like fiction 5 times removed. It's a waste of time. But like with the X-Men now, it's like these are characters that I don't recognize anymore.
Yeah.
And it's sad. And I mean, it's definitely a Chris problem, 100%, because people are a lot smarter than me and a lot more sane than me, and a lot more rational than me, and act less on emotion than I do. But yeah, it's a toughie. It's a toughie. When stuff today sucks, in my opinion, it's impossible for me to go back.
But that
And I've tried.
pile of leaves is still there for you to jump in, Chris. You know what I mean?
You'd think.
308
But what's
is
under that pile
is
now?
still there. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It's just, and it's something that we're always going to argue over. Friendly, of
Mhm.
course, because
Sure,
we're
sure,
we're
sure.
pals and everything. But it's a frustrating thing for me because it feels like
Oh,
you
yeah.
built this wall yourself. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's a mental block.
You've done
Yeah.
this. Like you're inflicting this damage to yourself. This trauma and everything
Oh, yeah.
is all self-inflicted over what is happening
Hmm.
now compared to the joys of then, which is I
Of
think
course.
is defeatist to nostalgia in general, right? Because
Oh, it's a killer.
that's what we all
It's a killer.
glob onto with nostalgia, is because it's bringing us
Hmm.
back to a happier time. My childhood
Hmm.
wasn't particularly happy, but I always have those comics. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Same here.
And you mentioned the Euro Gyro Hero. I'll name
Hmm.
all three so I don't insult any Greek.
Any Greeks passing
Yes,
by?
exactly. Outside or just on YouTube.
Looky
Yeah,
loos.
how
Yeah.
dare you call our signature dish that, you bastard? But um, like I remember sitting and eating Chuckles. Remember Chuckles? Those little candies.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
a
Yeah. You always throw the yellow one out.
the black one. You didn't like the black licorice
Oh, I
one.
love the
You
black
did?
one. I love
Yeah.
the black
This see
licorice.
that's a.
That's that's actually how I solved the Easter bunny.
Oh no,
Yeah, I ate all the black jelly beans
no.
the day before, and then in the Easter basket there were no black
Oh,
jelly
son of
beans.
a gun! You mastermind.
Yeah.
You evil
Mm-hmm.
man.
Villain.
Yeah, for real,
Mm-hmm.
legit. Um, but yeah, like I can open up a copy of something and those chuckles I can still taste them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's pure nirvana. It's amazing, and I'm not thinking about anything else. Just
I wish I could
boom,
do
and
that.
it's like, give me more of that, please.
I
Por
wish I could do
favor.
that.
Oh my god, we're gonna have to take you to a hypnotist.
No, no, I mean, speaking of mental
Mm.
blocks, I mean, this could become an entire segment that we can do semi-regularly.
Okay.
Um, I was talking about Young Justice on NML Crossing a few weeks ago, and how it was like my favorite DC book when it was coming
Mm-hmm.
out. You know, Peter David, we're big fans of Peter David, and I just loved it. I said on the show, like, it wasn't always the first book of the week, but it was always the first DC book of the week I'd read,
Sure.
because I was in love with this book, and going back to it, I can't get into it anymore, because it came out when I was like 18, 19. Life was ahead of me. I was not yet cynical. Um, I was not yet as damaged and broken as I've become. So it like takes me back to this weird spot where everything was, I mean, the sky was the limit. And those windows, they close more every single minute of every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I can't put myself back into the gestalt of when they came out. So they fall flat. It's weird. Definitely Chris problems for
Yeah,
sure.
for real, man. I mean, I don't know if you're alone. Maybe there's some other people out there in the world who just, yeah, they're so bothered by what things became, they can't
Hmm.
enjoy that original spark that brought them so much happiness in the first place. And yet again, that's the reason why, if you can, like me, maybe it's
Hmm.
because I got less brain cells than you. I don't know, and it's just easier for me to accept certain things. Who knows? Maybe I was hypnotized, and I don't know it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Now we need to talk to pre-crisis fans
Mm-hmm.
and just see and like gauge how they felt post-crisis. Like, could they go back and enjoy the pre-crisis stuff, being told that don't matter no more?
That's a good point.
I wonder. I mean, because I mean, like you said, everything's generational, and the lines of generation are so much more firm now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we have regular uh, purges. It's like, okay, okay, fans over 35, go. We don't want you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I don't think that was always the way.
Well, just real quick, something I can relate it to in a very
Mhm.
simplified fashion. Like, it's no secret that you love wrestling.
Sure.
I love my local, well, formerly local Boston sports teams, and sometimes they're
Hmm.
terrible, but I still root for them. You know what I mean? And,
Hmm.
and they make decisions and they hire people and do things that I think are the stupidest, just
Sure.
most like, what are you thinking? Like any moron in the street would know not to do that. And you're getting paid big
Yeah.
bucks, but still, I wear the jersey. I root them on. I'm cheering for the laundry, is the way I like to put it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Even if I can't really identify with the team or the personnel or whoever is in the front
Sure.
office and whatever, but I still do it. It's like ingrained in me to just keep on trucking, man. So, in relation to that, I would think wrestling sucks now than what it did in the 80s, right? Compared to the way it used to be.
And that's a weird disconnect because I can go back
Aha! I
and
got you,
watch
man.
and watch 80s
Yeah.
wrestling or 90s wrestling. I can do that.
Okay.
I where like if it sucks, and I mean it's getting a little bit better now, but it sucked hard for many
Mm-hmm.
years. And I could still go back. So like wrestling and comics, there's a lot of similarities for sure, but not a one-to-one for me. It's weird.
Okay. Well, you know my stance on wrestling. If there's no Coco Beware, I know Coco Be there. So,
This is
you know,
true. Yamo no Coco.
yeah, correct. Um, and wrestling, of course, just to put it out there, is something I completely and utterly do not understand. And I did get some flack for I don't know if it was our first or second episode when I asked you
Hmm.
about Rhea Ripley
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah. Oh, and you said Ronda Rousey.
yeah, my
Yeah.
friend Beto is like in love with her. And I said the wrong name, and of course he's like, dude, he's like, I almost crapped my pants. He's like, I was watching it live on my TV, and I hear you say that, and I was like, no. And I'm like, I knew it. I knew you would. And it's my bad, but I just don't know wrestling. So my bad.
Sure,
Whoops.
sure.
Sorry, guy. But yeah. But there we go. I got you. That was our I got you moment for episode
Hmm.
6.
Hmm.
Wrestling is
There you
immune
go.
to the Chris Block.
It might just be that I'm more passionate about comics. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really could be. But
Because I mean, comics, wrestling, things you watch are far more passive.
mhm,
And I mean, I don't do a wrestling podcast. I'm not a fake ass wrestling historian. you know,
it's true.
don't know. Don't know.
Well, I do recommend anybody if you have a sweet spot comic or if you want to kind of
Yes.
relate or talk about, tell us what you think we just said. Email
Yeah,
us
please let us know.
badabinshow
Sure.
at gmail.
If you can decode it.
Decode
Yes.
right there we go. Maybe someone out there can solve that puzzle that is your
Hmm.
brain, and you can
Yes.
finally enjoy X-Men 308 again.
Drink more
There
Ovaltine.
you go. Sure. Decode the message and crack the code. Sure, absolutely. Um, I think that's actually a pretty good segue
Cool.
to another topic we wanted to discuss, where this is actually your deal. So I don't know if I can do justice explaining
Hmm.
it because via text we were kind of bouncing this idea back and
Hmm.
forth through the last couple of days. And at first I thought I completely understood it, and I'm like, wait, what? Huh? Who? What? Wait. So maybe I don't know if you want to kind of explain it to the audience where we're going with the next topic.
Is this
This
osmosis?
is indeed.
Okay, okay. Um, I was I was at the record store over the weekend, and I saw this. Where is it? This book right here, right here. We talked about the books that are hyped,
Mm-hmm.
overhyped, and when you read them, it's like, really? They might have significance, they might be important to the art form, to the history of it, and then you read it, and it's like, huh, okay, great. So I got that book for a few bucks, and I was like, okay, I wanted it on the shelf,
Yeah.
and I get home, and I had the weirdest revelation, and I felt like a complete fraud because I am a complete fraud.
Ouch.
I was sure that I had read this entire in this entire book. I thought I read it. I didn't.
And just to clarify, that is
I
the
didn't.
hard traveling heroes
Hard traveling
era.
heroes. O'Neill Adams.
Yes.
Yeah, O'Neill Adams. You done considerable for the Purple Skins. That one. I thought I'd read it. I thought I knew it inside and out, and I started reading it over the weekend, and I was like, I never read this.
Yeah.
So I came to the conclusion that I learned everything I know about this via osmosis. Just because we know that this is an important, a seminal run, regardless of quality, because it's, in my opinion, it's not
Right.
great, but but it's important. And I assumed, being a fake ass comics historian and having seen, I guess, countless articles, even going back to Wizard and in the the Tomorrow's books and listening to podcasts and watching videos, that I knew it inside and out. And I'm reading it and I'm like, I don't know much of
Mm-hmm.
this. So I felt like a complete fraud. And I was wondering how pervasive this was in our fandom. We are a very niche fandom, regardless of how much mainstream
Sure.
attention superheroes get. Comic books are very niche still, and they're only going to get more niche. But the content surrounding them in our niche is quite ubiquitous. I mean, we're talking about it right now. You could pop on and Google, comic book podcasts, and it might crash your browser. There's so damn many every day. You know, so I was wondering if anybody out there, or you, had any series or stories just like this, where you just assume you know it, or you assume you read it, you assume that you studied it, and then when you're confronted with it, you realize, I didn't.
Mm. Well, I mean, in my case, it's not
Mhm,
necessarily something where I think I read it. It's something I own.
mhm.
Yet I can
Okay.
pull it off the shelf and not tell you
Hmm.
a damn thing about it because I'm like, yeah, I read this like 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, of course, this is an important piece of
Hmm.
work. And then I'm like, the artwork wasn't that great, you know?
And I mean, that's like another layer of the conversation. Things that are important, that we read, that we can't be erudite about. We
Mm-hmm.
can't speak knowingly about it. I mean, I know the one you're about to mention,
Yes.
but I mean, I can piggyback off that as
Yeah, mine
well.
was
So,
V for Vendetta, which,
uh-huh,
I
uh-huh.
love a certain chunk of Alan Moore work thanks to his Swamp
Sure.
Thing material,
Swamp
which
Thing,
I
sure.
consider top notch. It's like number one, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and real quick, I just want to say the anatomy lesson in particular was
Mm-hmm.
something that I think would be actually pertinent to this conversation because a lot of people will be like, "Yeah, I can tell you about the anatomy lesson." Well, did you read it? I don't know, but you saw it
But you
referenced
know the
so
beats.
many
Yep, you
times.
know the beats.
And like you mentioned Wizard magazine would talk about it, and
Yep.
then you see certain panels here or there, or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, something that kind of blows my mind about it is, does it hold up today? And to me,
Okay.
rereading it, I still feel, even though I know what's going to happen, like, damn, that was so
Mm-hmm.
good. Oh my God, that was brilliant.
So clever. So
Right, that was
clever.
so smart. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my God.
Oh
But
yeah.
if you were a 22-year-old kid or 20, in your early 20s, I'm being very specific. You're 22
Mm-hmm.
years old. If you were born on this date in April, June, whatever, um, does it still have that weight? Does it still have that
The
same
oomph.
punch?
Sure.
And even then, how has it not been spoiled to you
Yeah,
because
it's
of
true. It's true.
just
The
clickbait?
ubiquitous nature.
Yeah,
Yeah.
clickbait websites,
Mm-hmm.
like whatever. I kind of lost my train of thought here where I was going with that, but yeah, V for Vendetta is
Mm-hmm.
one is sitting right behind me. Can't
Sure.
tell you a whole hell of a lot about it, but I can swear to you
Yeah.
up and down the board, man. Oh, I read it. I read it. And if you had a gun to my head,
Oh yeah.
tell me what happens
Hmm.
in issue 4 and what I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah.
So I'm guilty.
I think
You know.
I think that's a biggie for the Sacred Cow books.
Mm,
V for Vendetta. I read it probably 2002, 2003. Couldn't tell you a damn thing about it.
yeah.
Watchmen. I couldn't tell you much about Watchmen. I couldn't be
What?
specific about it.
Wow.
I've read it multiple times, but
Hmm.
it's been many years,
Yeah.
so I couldn't tell you everything about it. Um, what was the one? I just had another one. It was a good one too. I don't remember what it
Well.
was. Oh,
Oh
Mouse,
yes. Oh yeah yeah
Mouse,
yeah.
Spiegelman's Mouse.
Yes.
Read that multiple
Big
times.
deal.
Couldn't tell you anything besides the history lesson. The allusions that were made. Cerebus. Cerebus is another like seminal sort of comic historian sort of book.
Hmm.
Couldn't tell you much about that either. I've only read the first phone book, but I mean, I couldn't tell you. It's like, oh, it's kind of Conan-y. That's about it.
Mm. Well,
Yeah,
Watchmen.
so I mean, that's like a whole other layer
Watchmen's a big one.
of our.
Everybody will claim
Yeah.
they've read Watchmen if
Uh
they've
huh.
just seen the movie. They
Mm-hmm.
will tell you that that's the book that changed their lives. You know what I mean? You're like, oh yeah, well, what'd you
Yep.
like about it? And they, oh yeah, the ending was great. It was,
Rorschach.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, the movie ending was different than the book. Damn it. Um, I'm not
I couldn't
gatekeeping
speak
on
to
that,
that.
but yeah, okay, you cannot because you did not see the film. And the TV series, by the way, was excellent. They did a show Watchmen on HBO that.
This much
Well,
interest.
I'll tell you what. Yeah, there you go, donut hole. I did initially too. I'm like, geez, again, are we gonna keep treading on sacred ground here? But then I gave it a shot, man, and it's one of my favorite shows I'd ever seen. I think yet again that was just brilliant. But yeah, as far as the seminal works, you just mentioned Mouse. What else is something that people? Well, okay, real quick here before I get into like just rattling off title names.
Sure.
You mentioned the glut of comic podcasts. I mentioned clickbait.
Oh
So
yeah.
maybe,
Hmm.
maybe, in all fairness, some people can kind of piece together, even though they haven't read it, a general sense of the story anyway, just by assembling those little bits and pieces in scotch tape and sawdust. Uh,
The thing with a comics podcast
mm,
is some of them ain't good at research.
true.
Some of them are clickbait in and of themselves.
Okay.
I remember when I was doing podcasts and articles for Weird Science DC Comics website. I guess I might have been the most approachable member of the crew.
Mm-hmm.
So like people who starting their podcasts would like send me their podcasts. It's like, hey, can you check this out?
Yeah.
And I knew even less about it then than I do now, which is saying I knew nothing, or less than nothing, because I know nothing now. And so I'm listening to podcasts, and it's like talking about Swamp Thing. It's like, okay, Swamp Thing, first appearance, Swamp Thing #1, November 2011 cover date, created by Scott Snyder. It's like, what? You actually
Ouch.
you're you're
Oh.
putting that out into the world?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. And because they probably read the zero issue of Swamp Thing that came with that fake ass Who's Who that said the first appearance of Swamp Thing was Swamp Thing #1 from 2011. It's like, okay, you need to go a little deeper than that.
Right.
The two that always really get under my skin that people learn from osmosis. Anytime anybody brings up Seduction of the Innocent, because I am the only person that I know who's actually read that book, and people who talk about it get so much wrong. They just get so much wrong, and it's all. When I was reading Seduction of the Innocent, it almost felt wrong because I was so bought into the narrative that I'd heard about it. So like I'm reading, I'm like, am I reading the right thing? Because it was just so different from what people say. Some people go to like they've got talking points about it and how Wortham was responsible for the Comic Code Authority, and it's like, what about Estes Kefauver? Anybody hear of that guy? Because I hadn't before I started researching it. But the narrative is so strong and just so intact in the community that we have this boogeyman named Wortham, and people don't realize anything else that Wortham had done. They don't know why his opinion was held in such high regard. They don't know that he actually came around to comic books at the end of his life and was booted out of one of Phil Souling's early comic conventions by hecklers who robbed us of potentially a very historical moment
Uh-huh.
where the boogeyman faced his accusers and actually came around to say, hey, you guys were right. I was wrong. But we were robbed of that because people are dicks. And the narrative continues to this
Yeah.
day. People don't know anything about Seduction of the Innocent. I read it. It sucked. It's garbage.
Uh-huh.
It's written so like 5-year-olds could understand it. It's crap. But it's not what people tell you it is. It's a lot different. Another one that gets to me is Reign of the Superman. You ever read Reign of the
No,
Superman?
I have not. I actually believe the only exposure I had to that was
Was the first picture?
no, your podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is a story. It's a text story written by whoever, whichever the Siegel and Schuster, whichever one of those wrote. They had their own sci-fi fanzine,
Mm-hmm.
and before Action Comics came out, it was a story called Reign of the Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bald man in the. It's an illustrated
Right.
story. And so, like, anytime I'd hear it mentioned on a podcast or written about in a blog, it's like, yeah, Superman was this bald, mad scientist who looked more like Lex Luthor. So that's the narrative. And I assumed that that's what it was until I read it. And he's not.
Mm-hmm.
The bald mad scientist is the guy who found a homeless man and made him Superman. So it's completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But the narrative is still there. You ask anybody, any fake ass, super fake ass comics historian about the reign of the Superman, and they'll tell you that, oh yeah, that was when Lex Luthor looking guy was Superman.
Right.
Not true. Not true at all. And that bugs me.
Yeah.
That those two really get under my skin because it's not hard to research.
It isn't.
Research is
It
easy.
isn't. But let me get this out of the way. One of the things that I found
Mm-hmm.
most impressive about you
Mm-hmm.
when I was introduced to you via podcast form was
Mm-hmm.
your meticulous research and
Oh yeah.
your just complete devotion to scripting. I'm a completely different human being, okay? I run on emotion. As you can tell, I flub things up
Mm-hmm.
all the time. I say things just kind of off the cuff, and, I apologize for it on the
Nothing
regular.
wrong with that.
Right. But in my podcasting history, that's
Mm-hmm.
how I operate.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't do things the way that you do things. And
I wish I was a little bit more flexible
well,
myself.
you're doing this with me today, so you've kind of bent your will to the format that I the only format I can do. You know what I mean? So I really did admire that about you so much. Like, and
Mm.
yes, in comparative to other shows that were out there, once you started listening to what you and Reggie were doing, there was no turning back. You know what I mean? These guys, they inform, they give you all the stuff you need to know, the truth, the history of they have fun. You know what I mean? It's just great. So without you being who you are, we wouldn't be friends today.
Well, I
You know
appreciate
what I
that.
mean?
I appreciate that. No, I mean, in doing those shows early on, it's very thankless to do research. Research is easy, but it's not sexy.
Ah, yeah.
it's um, I remember when I was doing the script for the juvenile delinquency trial that instigated the Comics Code,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I spent an entire weekend looking for a single quote that added about 3 seconds to the show. And it was just like, because I needed to get it right because we were going so hard against the narrative that, I mean, it's easy to get lost in a narrative where people will tell you you're wrong,
Right.
because that's just what they've heard. And I mean, had I not done the research, I'd have been there, standing in line, being like, yeah, you're an idiot. You're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of the first dominoes to tip. And I'll never forget this. It was an issue of Panic where it was basically a Mad ripoff. And it was a retelling of Clement's Night Before Christmas. And the pictures were of like Santa Claus with like newly divorced on the back of his sleigh. It was just like it was silly, of course.
Sure.
But the book got banned in Massachusetts because it showed, that it showed marriage as a less than secure institution.
Right.
And so it got banned there, and it was one of the first dominoes to tip in the establishment of the Comics Code. So I remember around Christmas time, somebody posted a panel from it. I'm like, oh, that was one of the things that did that. And they wrote back and they're like, no, you're thinking of Seduction of the Innocent. It's like, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
No, no. It's like I had a whole thing like reply. It's like, did you actually read Seduction? I'm like, no, not even worth
Yeah.
it. Not even worth it.
Well, I mean, my only real exposure
Mm.
to it, other than documentaries, was there was a book called Comic Book Nation. I believe it was
Mm-hmm.
by Bradford Wright, and I
Mm-hmm.
loved that book. I thought it was great and it was very informative to me. But I
Mm-hmm.
think, like most people, Seduction of the Innocent, yeah, who bothers to take the time to read about that when you already have someone else who might have read it or they're referencing it? So there you
Yeah,
go. You know what I mean?
there you go.
And maybe
There
that's
you
the
go.
precursor to where we live today, how everybody trusts memes and thinks whatever's written on a meme is
Oh
true.
yeah, it's true.
you
Yeah,
know?
it's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I wanna grab something here. So vamp for a few
Oh,
seconds. I'll
okay.
be right
Well,
back.
let me tell you something about Chris while he walks away. Is an interesting thing about how Chris does research. And you wouldn't know this, I guess, unless you were a good pal of his, like I am, because we're like the bestest, He will do this, and I'm talking about you, Chris. Chris, I'm
What
telling
happened?
people about you right now. First, I'm just gloating about how great friends we are, but
Oh yeah.
you could have access to something online if you were going to do a piece, whether
Hmm.
a blog post or a podcast. But if you have the slightest inclination, you can find that comic. You will drive an hour and a half to
Oh
go to a
yeah.
place to dig for it rather than just
Just in case. Yeah.
rather because you want it in your hands, you want the real
Hmm.
deal, you want every little
Oh
nook
yeah.
and cranny. It's the English muffin, baby, rather than just going online. And I find that very interesting about you, that dedication that you have to actually getting your fingers on that source material.
It's funny. I guess there was a recent controversy about the Wolverine and Deadpool movie,
Oh,
which I guess there's a thing that's
yes,
happening
it is.
where Roy Thomas was credited as one of the creators of Wolverine.
Okay.
And I guess people like kind of flipped their lid about that because Len Wein, and I don't know if Len Wein got a credit or a co-credit or whatever it is. But I was talking to a friend of mine, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this thing's going on." I'm like, "I don't even know what's going on. I don't follow the news, and definitely don't follow comic movie news." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I guess there was a quote somewhere from Roy Thomas that he was the creator." And I'm like, "Hold on a second." And I ran to some research material, and I sent him a few pages out of a few books. And the first one I sent him, I'm like, "Huh, well, this isn't a Roy Thomas quote saying that he created Wolverine. It's a Len Wein quote saying that Roy Thomas co-created Wolverine." And then I sent the other one too, where Roy said it as well. And it's like research isn't hard, people. You just have to want to do it.
Well, then,
And
talk about.
granted, I have access to a lot of stuff because I've been collecting ephemera
Uh
forever.
huh.
But I mean, it's not hard to
Well,
find.
I was going to say, what about Bob Layton? There's a guy for you that likes to toot his own
There you
horn,
go.
right? I created this. I did this. Oh yeah. Well, to your credit, you were a great artist and you
Hmm.
contributed to yet again a seminal era of Iron Man none of us read. Uh,
Sure. Well, we all say we
we
did.
saw it. We saw it in Wizard magazine.
We'll all.
But slow your roll,
But
Layton. Calm down, Bubba.
the thing I went to grab was this newspaper here
Okay.
that I found in a garbage bin. It's the Chicago Front Porch
Oh
Press.
wow.
Okay. Yes. From good grief, I don't even know when this was from. Probably. Yeah, we have Cloaca the Jungle Girl here. You have an ad here where somebody wrote in their back issues that they have. I mean, insane stuff. But the reason I wanted to show it here is because on the inside front cover, there's an advertisement for this book here, The World of Fanzines, written by Dr. Frederick Wortham, MD.
Wow.
This is him coming around to comic books. This is him talking about what a special he called fanzines like a very special relationship or something like that. And the cool thing about this is that the comic shops in Chicago here had 100 copies of the thing autographed by Wortham that they were going to hand out. So more evidence that Wortham came around to comics. I mean, and I'm not saying he was a perfect man. I'm not even saying he was a good man. But the narrative is not the complete story.
Right.
You know, and I feel like had the narrative been a little weaker, we would have so much more history right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was shunned when he made a public appearance about comic books, which is such a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It's really sad. We were robbed of that. We were robbed of him actually having that cliche come to Jesus moment where he would be like, you know what? Okay.
Yeah. That whole era is fascinating. And I'm not going to admit that I know a whole ton about it. The whole book burnings and
Sure, sure.
Bill Gaines famously sitting before the committees and talk.
Oh, sweating his
Yeah,
ass
but
off
kind of jabbing back about the whole EC
on his
comics
diet
and
pills.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that is definitely, and like you said, research isn't hard. So if you are interested in something like that,
Yeah.
they should write badabinshow at gmail.com and tell Chris you want to join him on his quest for truth.
On the
There
journey
you
here.
go,
Yep.
exactly, right? We're all attending Osmosis University. Well, not Chris. Hell
Hmm.
no. You know?
Well, I mean, I stumble too. I probably stumble more than most people because I talk about it so damn
Yeah.
much. I mean, the hard traveling heroes, that was a slap to the face. I'm like, wow, how did I imagine that I read
Yeah.
this? Because it wasn't even a matter of me reading it 20 years ago and not remembering it. I never read it.
Do you want to
Because
read
it's
it?
like
Are you actually interested in it?
yes and no.
Yeah.
Because it is wildly dated. It's wildly basic.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that it was probably like a lightning bolt at the time, but now to say it's quaint might even be giving it too much credit,
Okay.
you know. And I feel bad because like Denny is and was a legend, but the more Denny I read,
Yeah.
the less I'm digging. And I mean, Hard Traveling Heroes gets a lot of press for being like DC's entry into socially relevant
Sure.
stories, but it wasn't. There was a Teen Titans story from years before where a civil rights leader was assassinated, and the Titans failed to save him, and they basically retired as superheroes. They're like, we're never going to wear our costumes again, except for every issue when they put their costumes back on. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it was definitely a torn from the headline sort of situation that gets like no press. Nobody talks about that one.
Yeah.
At least not the places I look. Granted, I don't look much because I don't like online research so much. But who
No,
knows?
but instead you get the documentary about Denny O'Neil being a strange-looking man from St. Louis who had a different worldview than the rest of editorial at DC Comics. And then as far as like Neil Adams, I think we've actually talked about that before. I'm
Mm,
not a Neil Adams fan.
me
I
either.
do appreciate what he did wholeheartedly. For example, like for the
Sure.
creators of Superman rather, and
Hmm.
like just getting creators'
When
rights. Um,
when he took the ball from Arnold Drake because nobody was listening to Arnold Drake.
okay, all right. Well, let's put a pin in that too.
Okay.
But anyway, what I was gonna say was much more simplistic. Just you're looking at
Mm,
Kurt Swan, you're looking at Neil Adams. I can see how a teenager in the '60s was
hmm.
like, "Yeah, Neil Adams is my jam." You
Oh,
know,
it's like Al Milgrom and Rob Liefeld.
oh, well, I don't
I mean,
know.
not to the extreme, but I mean, but they were both, similar time. You know, one was leaving as one was coming, but I mean, one was definitely
Yes,
different.
okay, okay, you got me there. Okay.
One was off house style.
Yes. Now, if I was
Yeah.
12 years old, would I rather have Liefeld or Milgram? Liefeld, 1,000% yes.
Oh, every
But
day,
now I'm
every
in my
day.
40s. I don't know, man.
Oh, of
you know,
course, of course. I mean, we're talking about the Gestalt here. We're talking about the time in which it
yes,
happened.
yes, yes, exactly. If we
Yeah,
put ourselves there, then oh yeah, you
for
show me
sure.
Jim Lee compared to Al Milgram or
Oh yeah,
I mean, God,
McFarlane, any of the Image guys,
oh
sure.
yeah, that was something else. That was
Yeah, it was a
wow.
revelation.
Yeah, I know. And
Yeah.
here's the crazy thing too, and I gotta mention this because something that drives me crazy
Hmm.
about modern comics is there's some artists that I absolutely love, and I'm not trying to diminish their
Hmm.
work, but the fact that these artists, man, they were just glued to their table, and they just churned out monthly books
Oh yeah.
And I know
Sometimes more than
and I
one.
know there's some issues with delays. Not everybody was perfect, but like now I know I don't even want to name the titles to be honest with you, but like there's an
Hmm.
artist that lured me in and I'm like, okay, great. And then there's a guest artist for 4 issues until they return. Because they needed more time. And I get it. They do
Of course.
amazing work and it's not
They kill
easy.
it. The levels of detail nowadays compared to the back in the
Yeah.
day, worlds
And you
apart.
don't roll out of bed and
Worlds
just go, well, this my talent is just right here, glowing before me in front of my
apart.
eggs and toast. It takes work. It takes
Yep.
dedication. It's hard, you know. But that always struck me as like, man, I can. You go back and you look at some of this mind blowing work that was done,
Hmm.
and they were just firing on all cylinders, man. And there was no stopping.
Oh yeah.
There was no break,
Hmm.
you know.
Yep.
So God bless them.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I just have a couple more of the osmosis reads
Sure.
here. Uh, Hank Pym being a wife
Oh
beater
yeah, that was a biggie.
is one
Mm-hmm.
that I think a lot of people speak about that have never read it, don't know the context, don't know the backstory, don't know the behind the
Wasn't that
scenes
an
stuff.
accident or something? Like it wasn't supposed to be.
It was supposed to
Yeah.
be, yeah, it was supposed to be a like Janet coming up behind Hank and him being like, "I'm busy," you know.
Mm-hmm.
But Bob Hall drew it like a whack. He said he drew it Marvel style,
Okay.
um, which I guess sure. Um, and since Jim Shooter was the writer of the issue, and Jim Shooter's big thing was like get the books out on time, I guess they didn't have time. That's the story. That's like the story coming from the back end here. It's like, well, we couldn't push it back
Right. Yeah.
because it had to be out on time. So that's one that people talk about, and it actually inspired me to write an article about it at Chris's on Infinite Earths, where I was at a comic shop about 40 miles away, going through a bin. I think I was looking for a Vartox book. I think it was back then, and the guys were talking about. I guess one of the Ant-Man movies was coming out, and one of the guys standing there goes, "Man, they should do a movie about that Ant-Man who got drunk all the time and beat his wife." And like the owner of the comic shop was there, and he's like, "Yeah, yeah, they should." And I'm like, "That's not how it happened. that's that's not the story." But it's like, yeah, that's the narrative. That's all Marvel wants us to know about Hank Pym is that he's a wife beater. But it's like, context is king. Uh,
True.
the other one, the other one that gets to me is Strike Force Morituri. People love posting the front cover, the cover to the first issue of Strike Force Morituri. People have never read Strike Force Morituri. They know the gist of it because it's a basic gist. These people get this injection or this. They go through this procedure that gives them a random superpower, but they're going to die within a year. It's an interesting topic. It's a very good book. But when me and Charlton Hero did our Moratory Mondays, we actually, put in the work, read it, discussed it, analyzed it, and yet, I mean, not that we were, spectacular in any, sense. Like we said, comic podcasts are everywhere, but people don't really know much about it, but claim to.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't mean to do this as like some sort of a call out because, like I said, I've done it myself, and I'll continue to do it. Probably every week I'll realize I didn't read something I said I read on, even stuff I read on the
Yeah.
air because I just was sure I did, or because it's just what you do as a fake ass comics historian. But it's interesting to me.
It is. And yet again, I posed a question to the audience. What are some books that you
Hmm.
think, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to sneeze? What a bad timing for that. Everybody, this is what a face looks like when it's about to just blow snot all over the
Expel.
computer. Yes. Thank you for putting that so much more politically than I was about to. Okay, better now. All right. If you have any
There
opinions
you
on this
go.
matter, make sure you reach out, badabinshow at gmail.com.
Hmm.
Chris, let's move on, please.
Let's do it.
And I want you to talk to me.
Sorry for droning
No,
on
no,
there.
that was like me with Mad Magazine. I felt like I was just talking and talking, and you weren't stepping in to say, Dave, slow down, guy. We got your
I would
point.
never. You were in
I
nostalgia
was
land. I
passionate.
like
Yeah, I
that.
was in another place, man. You
Mm-hmm.
started talking
Mm-hmm.
about freaking. Start talking about the classics.
Mm-hmm.
More than boogers come out of my face. So I want you to talk to me. I want you to ask me a question that's
Oh
extremely long
yes.
overdue, and you brought it up on one of your programs, and I was listening. And I
Mm-hmm,
was like,
mm-hmm,
oh, well,
mm-hmm.
great. He's going to bring this up on the next Bada Bin. And,
I spaced
yeah,
it.
it's
Then the
solved.
next week I spaced it
You
again.
did.
Then the third week I spaced it
Well,
again.
here's the other thing that I found very discouraging is a question I thought you'd know the answer to, but apparently you
I
don't.
don't.
So,
I
why don't
don't.
you? This is so fake. This is such a setup, man. I'm like, yeah. Why don't
Hmm.
you ask me that question? I don't know what it is. Why don't you ask me right now,
Hmm.
please?
Yeah, this is an off the cuff
Oh
question here.
yeah.
Impromptu,
No.
spontaneous even.
Anti-impromptu.
Yes. This is a well known question. We talked a few weeks ago about when you asked me what my favorite Superman artist
Mm-hmm.
was. And Chris, you wrote in to an ML Crossing and said, hey, let's do Batman. That's a Batman show. Who's your favorite Batman artist? So then I answered on the air on NML Crossing. He mentioned that his was Aparo, and I think Aparo in the '80s is as good an answer as any.
Gold standard.
Um, yeah, I mean, close to the turn of the century, maybe not, but '80s. I mean, that's great
Mm-hmm.
stuff. That's great stuff. So the question for you, Dave, is who's your favorite Batman artist?
I thought you would have known this already, and the fact that you didn't,
I wonder if I'm going to kick
you
myself when you
are,
say
you
it.
absolutely are.
Brayfogle?
Hey, dude, why did it take you so
Hey!
long? Oh my God, Jesus,
There we go.
Louises.
There we go.
I love me some Norm Brayfogle.
Norman.
And I love Norm for many reasons, one of which I was getting into Batman around the 89 period. I mean, everybody knew who Batman was and this and that, despite
Sure,
whatever you were
sure.
reading off the stands at the time. For me, I was a big Marvel guy. DC wasn't as big in my life. But it was Brayfogle was the first artist that kind of struck me because he showed expression through the mask, through the cowl.
Okay.
You know what I mean? The way he would do the raised eyes, much like you'd see with Spider-Man later, with like
Hmm.
McFarlane, who we just referenced.
Sure.
So to see that form of expression through Batman, who you always thought was just kind of like this hard ass, and you could kind of get more of a reaction out of him, I thought was just absolute genius. His Batmobile was incredible, and the series and fluidity to his action and his
Hmm.
storytelling, even as a kid, I thought was second to none. And I loved Aparo. I mean, prior to seeing Brayfogle's work,
Hmm.
really, who else would you think except for Jim
Of
Aparo?
course.
And as you mentioned,
Sure,
we're
sure.
talking the 80s, and he'd been around for
Yeah.
decades.
Prime.
I
Yeah.
mean, he did some Aquaman in the 70s, and we could go on and on.
Hmm.
This is prior to his Bane's Breathethith in the 90s, which I'm sure you know what I'm referencing. His Bane.
Hmm. Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
that hurt. That did not look great. But still, he was just absolutely amazing for when he was at his peak. But
Hmm.
yeah, for my money, Brayfogle is the absolute best, and I just love seeing any of his bat work. Some of his other stuff I found a little bit
Sure.
rougher.
Hmm.
For example, someone might say, "Well, you liked his Batman. You must have loved Prime." No, not really. Prime was a little too much for me to take. But as far as bat related material, Brayfogle is number one, hands down. Enough said. Nobody can
I
take the
like it.
title from Norm Brayfogle. And the fact it took you until this very moment
I
for that
know.
spark to hit
Sad.
hurts my
Hmm.
feelings. It's an emotionally damaging moment for me. So yeah, so thanks a lot, Chris. Jeez, it took you weeks to think
Sorry.
of that too, because
It did.
my God,
It
man.
did. It did.
So yeah, so no argument there, right? Brayfogle's great, fantastic.
Brayfogle's
And it's
fantastic.
unfortunate he
Yeah.
passed away because when social media was really starting to gain a foothold, this is like right after MySpace and Facebook first
Hmm.
started coming around. He was on there. I like sent a friend request. He approved, and I chatted with him, not a lot, but a little bit
Hmm.
in private message. And he was the kindest, nicest guy to me because,
Oh,
you
nice.
know, if you go to a con and you meet one of your heroes, you gush. You're like, oh my God, this is amazing.
After you throw out their chili dog,
Yes, that's a story for yet again for another day. Because I
another
think
day.
that could take up an entire episode, the chili dog story. Uh, but you're intimidated, you're nervous, and that's how
Oh, of
that was like
course.
my lead-in with my message to Brayfogle. Just like, man, your bat stuff really. I wouldn't be a Batman fan today without it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And he was just humble and kind and took the time to write back a few times, and I really appreciate that. So when I found out he passed away, it hurt. I was like, this was a nice guy.
Mm.
He well, at least to me, he took the time to
Sure, sure.
placate me and make me feel like, hey man, this is cool. I'm talking to Norm. I can't
No,
believe this.
that's
This
really
is
cool.
amazing. So
Mm.
yeah.
I chickened out of talking to a few people
Mm,
in person.
really?
I was within like arm's reach of George Perez back in 2016, and he just looked like he was having a bad day. Like he looked really
Really?
annoyed. So I was like, I don't want to do that. And there was nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
No, like the Artist Alley at the Phoenix Comic Con in 2016 was the most pathetic thing. They had like cordoned off all the creators to like this one dark corner of the convention hall
Okay.
because I guess people go to a Comic Con in order to stand in line for 3 hours and pay $100 to take a picture with the Karate Kid Ralph Macchio. Huh? Like there aren't other cons for that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I walk down this artist alley or this creator alley, I guess, and I'm like, there's Dan Jurgens by himself.
Right.
There's Marv Wolfman by himself. There's George Perez by himself. It's like, what in the world is this? Um, Dan Jurgens I spoke to. Um, a really cool little chat I had with him. Took a picture with him, but unfortunately I was 100 pounds heavier than I am right now, so I looked quite a mess. Um, but then I saw Wolfman and Perez were like right across from each other, and they both looked so annoyed.
Wow.
And I was like, it's like crap. New Titans, Crisis. I want to talk to you
Yeah.
guys, but I wouldn't dare because they just looked like they were
Bummer.
not having good
That's a
days.
big
Yeah,
time bummer, man. Do you want to
totally. I
tell
mean, with
the
Perez,
chili dog story real quick, or do you want to save it?
no,
Okay.
no,
All
we'll do
right. All
that
right.
another time. We'll do that another time.
It's
Yeah.
it's tough to imagine a man who's wearing a Hawaiian shirt 24/7 being a grumpy Gus, but unfortunately,
Yeah, he
that's where we
just
are.
looked like he was having a bad day or whatever. I mean, and it sucks because I'll never get the chance now. But
Right.
yeah, it's just real too bad.
Yeah, it is a bummer. And in likening to Chris and his allergies, I have landscapers outside, so if you hear any weird noises or leaf blowers, I do
Ambient
apologize.
noise.
Yeah, ambient noise. It's those damn alcoholics with shiny objects running around outside. Seriously, man, they don't. All they do is stand around and smoke butts until it's time to annoy me while I'm doing a recording on YouTube Live. Then they pick up their tools and start doing their work. Just chain smoked 2 packs of freaking Pall Malls, and I was like, oh well, that was 2 hours well
Mhm.
spent. Let's annoy the comic book guy upstairs. Yeah.
There you go.
What do you say we get into my legit, real impromptu question for you? Because we spent the last couple weeks, I haven't hit
Yes,
you with anything, but it seemed like a popular thing to do to kind of catch you off the cuff and get your opinion
let's
on
do it.
something. So,
And this is
this
legit.
is absolutely legit. Now, full disclosure, you do know it's Superman related.
I do know it's in the Superman
You
milieu.
do, and you realize it's also in the realm of villains. So, what could I possibly ask? Okay, Chris,
Hmm.
I love the aesthetics of things. I love how things look, design. I'm really into it, and I love when something truly and utterly catches my eye, and every time I see it, it's a recognizable figure to which I cannot ignore, and I've grown to fall in love with. So, my question for
Hmm.
you is, who is the best designed, meanest, baddest, coolest looking Superman villain in the DC universe?
Oh,
Earth.
probably that
Earth.
Rag Al Zol guy who Bendis
Oh,
created.
yeah, that.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Okay, that was that was terrible.
Okay.
Um, coolest
The
look
coolest
for
look,
a
man.
Superman
The
villain.
best looking Superman villain. Like, I'm just telling you, like, every time you see that character, that baddie
Hmm.
on the page, you're like, damn, that design, that's just perfect, man. It's just great. Like, they just nailed it. You can't do any better than that.
Um, it's weird because I mean I'm probably gonna show our age and vintage here, but it's like I love the look of the cyborg
You
Superman.
do. Okay, that's a great
I
choice.
think that is just a cool. When I first saw that, I it might be sacrilege to say, but it's like I was hoping that be Superman.
Okay.
During the reign of the Supermen,
Right.
it's like, oh, I hope that's him. I hope that's the one we have forever. which is looking back is the ramblings of a 12-year-old
Yeah.
idiot. But I mean, it just looked so cool. Doomsday looked cool. That entire era informed a lot of my Superman fandom.
Apparently
So I
so.
mean,
Holy moly.
yeah, I thought those were some of the coolest designs for bad guy because we talked about being Marvel kids growing up,
Right.
and part of the reason for that is that the villains in Marvel looked so much cooler than the villains in DC, at least to me.
Right.
Um, the well I go to often is like it's like, well, I could read about the X-Men fighting Magneto, or I can read about Superman fighting a giant flower, because there would just be like silly villains
Mm-hmm.
or a giant lizard man. It's like, why do I care about that when I could be reading, the Fantastic Four fighting Doctor
Yeah,
Doom,
right.
or Captain America fighting the Red Skull? It just seemed very lesser than. So when I saw the post-crisis Marvelization of the DC universe, you got a lot of cooler villains, and every issue felt more like it had stakes to it, rather than just okay, I'm going to fight the giant plant, and then I'm going to wink at the camera at the end of the issue. It's
Yeah.
like, why would I come back next month? It just didn't seem important. Um, I mean, outside of like the Bat villains and the Flash villains, who were always kind of cool, they were always unique and had their own gimmicks. Superman just didn't seem to have that until he did. And even then, I mean, afterwards they used them all to death anyway. It's like, until we get Rogal Zol or
Oh,
whatever his name
don't
is.
get me
I'm
started
at
on
this.
that, please. Please do not, Chris. Now, just to kind of comment on that, I think Cyborg Superman is, and it's been modified, it's been changed. I know with the new 52, they also like tweaked designs, but still, if you show me an image of like Dan Jurgens Cyborg Superman,
Mm-hmm.
it's iconic, it's classic. It
Oh
the
yeah.
the heft carries into today. Like I can still look at it and be
Mm-hmm.
impressed by it.
Oh yeah.
Doomsday, I don't feel the same exact level of respect for, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
where
And he was a gimmick. I
yeah, yeah,
mean, it was
yeah,
like he was just the force of nature given flesh.
yeah, it's basically like a dude with like I know his bone, and it looks like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, just big bulky. It's like, I'm trying to avoid saying it, but for lack of a better way, I do say it. It's almost as if you took the Hulk and you just glued some bits and pieces on him and said, "Let him go, let him punch." You know,
They took Rogal Zor and put bones
don't.
on him
Will you stop with that, please? Do not bring up Rogol Zar.
on the way to
Yeah,
Arby's.
don't just hush it. Stop it. But Cyborg Superman, when I was thinking about mine, because I did not pose a question to you without having a
Mm-hmm.
response in kind.
Yes. And I haven't asked yet, but
No,
I do want to. I definitely do want to know.
and I know you shall, but yeah, Cyborg Superman was definitely like on my list. Like I'm trying to narrow down like what characters could I
Mm-hmm.
just like look at and just be like wowed by,
Sure.
and to jump the gun and ask the question myself, what would be mine? Okay, I'm not letting you. I'm not letting you ask.
Damn.
Well, sorry, buddy, but I finally narrowed it down to a character that I just think that his initial design was so
Mm-hmm.
flawless and perfect that if it has been tweaked much over the last 30 some odd years, it's been very, very little, because you really
Mm-hmm.
can't mess with perfection, you know what I mean, baby? It's just,
Sure. Sure.
and I
Sure.
think people realized it.
You're talking about Magpie.
Yes, magpie all the way. I stepped in a magpie. No, that was a cow pie. But yes, no, no, no. I'm gonna go with, and I'm about to show the image on the screen right now, silver banshee. I
Okay.
think, okay, that was a half-hearted, okay.
Eh,
Eh. What don't you like about Silver Banshee? Since I was all amped up over about talking about it.
I don't know if there's anything I dislike about it.
Okay, well, we'll talk about the
Hmm.
design, just the look.
Mm-hmm.
You don't like the whole white and black with the flaming.
I mean, it's striking for sure.
Yes,
I don't know that it stands out, but not anything higher than anything else to me, anyway.
I think she looks cooler than Doomsday.
Well, I mean that Doomsday is more an emotional thing for
Okay,
me,
all right,
so I can concede
all
that.
right, all right. Well, I was just trying to stick with something that I know.
What about Live Wire?
No, no, live. Maybe as far as anything that was pulled from an animated series and then brought into continuity. Well, I use that word loosely,
Your
continuity.
favorite.
Yeah, but no, every time I see Silver Banshee, any of her appearances, I'm immediately drawn to the page, and I think she is just an absolutely flawlessly designed character from the makeup, with the whole skull thing going on. Her earrings even have little skulls on them. So take that, Chris.
There you
There are
go.
skulls on them. They're earrings. The hair being white with the black streaks in it. I mean, I just think and you know, to be honest with you too, another thing during that John Byrne relaunch, I want to say it was issue 17 was where I first saw it because I know her first appearance was in
Hmm.
action, but
Hmm.
it was like the skeleton, the withered skeleton of Superman laying on the ground, and you just see her legs like standing over
Oh
him.
yeah.
I was like,
Hmm.
what the hell's going
Hmm.
on here? Who just sucked the life out of
There you
Superman,
go.
man? Superman, man, Superman, man. And of course, it was the Silver Banshee, and that was my first exposure to her. And ever since I saw her in the pages there, I try to scoop up anytime I see her on the solicits or pages of a magazine.
You're a Silver Banshee completionist.
Almost. I'll tell you what, I bet you I almost own everything she's been in. I don't have, there was like a 2 issue mini. I don't
Hmm.
have.
Oh, with Supergirl,
Oh,
right?
no, no, this was
The Superman Supergirl.
she
Oh,
was in
okay.
Supergirl. I have those issues.
But there was a Superman Supergirl mini with Silver
Was
Banshee. I think it
there?
was a Dan Barrington. Dan Barrington was the artist.
I know he did the actual Silver Banshee
Uh huh.
mini. So
Okay. Yeah, because
maybe,
like where like Superman always looks like he's a 5 o'clock
yeah,
shadow.
he's got this weird blockish.
Weird
But here's
style.
the thing:
Yeah.
I don't know if you're confused or I'm confused because I can guarantee you 100% there is a
¿Por
specific.
qué no las dos?
Okay, Silver Banshee mini that he was involved in, and then there was,
Okay.
if there's another one with the header, Superman, Supergirl, Silver Banshee, you got me there.
I could be wrong.
Well, you know who can set us straight?
I imagined I read it.
You know who can set us straight? The audience. Write in, let us know who's right,
Hmm.
who's
Let
wrong.
us know.
It's always Dave. Dave's always wrong. Damn it.
There. Oh, I was going to say you were always
Oh,
right.
okay. Well, there you go. That's up for debate as well. Let's throw that out there. See what people decide.
Hmm.
So, yeah. Now we get the impromptu questions done, which I think was fun to hear your responses,
Oh
and I
yeah.
think your answers were pretty good, even though you crapped all over mine.
I wouldn't say that.
I would definitely say that. Okay, okay. That's you rolled your eyes like, come on, dude. Silver Banshee's
Never.
awesome. She's the
Never.
coolest. Someone says to me, "Hey man, who'd you rather see? Christopher's emotional pick of Doomsday fighting Superman, or your legit, aesthetically perfectly
Wait, you
designed?"
want legit?
Yeah,
You want
you
legit
want legit. You want
for
Dave.
sure.
That's what's up.
Hmm.
So anyway,
That's what the people say.
yeah, and we're gonna get to what the people say right now, because
Oh, good
let's talk
segue.
about the emails, baby. We got a couple emails this week.
Hell of a segue that we didn't even plan. And I have to open up the windows here because I didn't
I
want
got
us
you.
to lag
Oh, sorry.
because I try to keep every window shut
Mm-hmm.
just in
Just in
case.
case we freeze.
All right. Do we want to start with Eric or Chris?
Chris is never failed to send an email. He's there. He's true blue,
Let's
baby. So
do it.
let's hit Chris right
Let's
off the
do it.
bat.
Let's do it. Chris Yu. He says here, let me, my old eyes here, I need to make this bigger. Don't get old, people. Hello, the Bada Bin Show. Another fine show, gentlemen. You become destination watching for me. But Dave hurt my heart when he said Crisis on Infinite Earths was boring. My all-time favorite crossover series. I've read that story many times more than any other comic ever. I never get tired of it. I always find something new in it with each reread. I won't hold it against Dave, though. He's still a 7 out of 10 guy to me. Plus, he loves Jaws. Any rebuttal to the Crisis is boring?
To each their own. I'm sorry for hurting his heart so tender and deeply. I mean, yet again, I will never get off the mountain of the importance of the event and
It
how
is.
significant it was. But as far as reading it now in my 40s, it just doesn't hold water like it did as a kid. So, Chris, it is what it is, baby.
Most modern action figures don't hold any sway over me. I only really buy figures with a nostalgia factor for me. I've been liking the McFarlane Superpowers figures. I had to buy the Nightwing and Tim Drake Robin figures to stand alongside my vintage Robin figure from my childhood. Now, I actually saw, I was at the record store and I saw some of the McFarlane Superpowers figures, and they had a Batman Who Laughs, like in that old, like 80s
Yes.
style. And I thought that looked super cool, but I was not going to pay $20 for it.
Yeah, no, they got to be
Um,
in like the sweet spot. You got to find them like when they're hitting discount racks in
on
Walmart. Yeah,
clearance,
exactly.
yeah.
Like $6 for
I was gonna
for
say
something.
five or below
Mm,
for sure. $5 or less, I'd have snapped it up. But
right.
$20, and a character I don't even really care for. It just looked
Yeah.
cool. It was like this weird blending of old and new. I like that juxtaposition. Chris continues. He says the cornerstone of my figure collection is a series of figures depicting Dick Grayson in every costume he's ever worn. From first appearance Boy Wonder Robin to Teen Wonder Robin, through every Nightwing costume, and even including his Batman costume. I even have an Earth 2 adult Robin to round out the set. The Earth 2 one, I just came into a couple of volumes of the Justice Society trade collection that Levitz did from the 70s, and seeing that Robin costume is always kind of interesting. You familiar with that
I
one?
am not. So I do not have the image ready to go. So all we can do is
Uh,
describe it with your words.
it's it's kind of a not so much a blending of Batman and Robin, but like he's got like a scalloped cape. There's like the R on his chest with like bat wings coming off of it. It's an interesting look, and the domino mask is now like a bigger mask.
Okay.
Very interesting stuff. Chris continues. I too have been gifted half dozen or so Funko Pops. They're not really my thing, but once again, they are an easy gift for the comics fan. This is true. My son got into Funko Pops when he worked at GameStop. He'd been a huge fan of the crocodile, no, Crocodile Hunter growing up, so my wife and I ordered him the exclusive chase variants of the Crocodile Hunter Pops that were only available from the Australia Zoo in Australia. That's a long way to go for a Funko Pop, and that's really cool. I
Right.
That's one of the things that I kind of love and hate about the Funko stuff with the exclusivity.
Well, I
You
mean,
know, it's
you being shipped from a
like this
different
one's
continent
only
on that one.
yeah, it's like this one's only available here. It's like, "Grr," you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you're definitely you're paying the exclusivity tax on that. Do you have any exclusives?
I get some that have stickers on them that say they're exclusive to whatever store or online,
Like whatever con or like a hot
but I didn't
topic
go to that
or
place to buy them.
FYE? Sure,
So I
sure.
just found them at like Half Price Books or Amazon or
Mhm.
whatever. So I've never ever once uh, like went out of my way to find an exclusive Funko of any form. If they fall in my lap,
I
okay. I couldn't even tell
you'll
you
snag them, yeah.
how much they're worth. I just assume they're all worth like $5.
Yeah, at the end of the day, for sure. Yeah, my wife had wanted a few specific ones that we had to do a little hunting
Uh huh.
for. I actually ventured into a hot topic a couple of
Ooh,
times,
that must be scary
which is
nowadays.
yeah, yeah. And in FYE, we found out that like there's like one FYE left in the Phoenix area. We had to drive like an hour to get there because it was an office one with Michael Scott dressed as Willy Wonka
Oh,
holding a golden ticket, and she wanted that one, so we had to hunt that one down. And we get there, and there was a glut of them, but so it wasn't hard to find them.
yeah.
But the ride there was long. Chris continues. Walking into strange comic book shops in strange towns in strange states was the highlight of just about every trip I've taken ever since I was about 13. I remember finding Contest of Champions #2 in a shop in New Jersey at about 15. A holy grail book for me at the time. I had to walk 15 blocks to find the shop, then 15 blocks back to find my parents because they had my money with them, and then 15 blocks back to finally buy the
Wow,
book.
labor of love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really.
That's my ElfQuest #1 story. Having to walk probably 2 or 3 miles to the shop. See, I only brought like $2 with me, and it was $5. So I had to walk home, get another three
Yeah.
bucks, then walk all the way back through Sayville to buy the damn book. But I mean, those are the things we
Well,
remember,
you should have just hustled
you
on the
know?
street. Is what you should have done. Saved yourself some
Yeah.
walking.
I, I'm going to sell my shoes.
Hey, whatever.
I just need three
Whatever
bucks.
someone's willing to buy.
Just, just need three
There you go.
bucks. Um, So that brings Chris to his question for the
Oh.
show. Comic book shop owners sometimes go out of their way to come up with a cool name for their store. What's your favorite name of a comic shop that you visited? Mine just so happens to be the name of the last comic shop I regularly frequented, which was called Comics on the Green. Located in beautiful downtown Scranton, Pennsylvania, the name just has an air of class to it. Like it's a place where you can sit on the veranda and sip brandy while perusing the latest adventures of Batman. Just for the record, they don't actually have a veranda. So that's our question
Mm.
for us and for anybody watching.
Yes.
What's a cool name of a comic shop you've
Well,
been to?
wow. See, I don't know if I've ever visited a shop where I've been that impressed by a name. I do
Mm-hmm.
have a couple things though I would like to say. One, there's no veranda, but if they had booze, I'd feel very weary about shopping there. Not because of alcohol, but because of food or drink. Something that is,
Nearby the
yeah, I
comics?
can't do it. I just can't do it. I still use the Biff Tannen method of reading comics. Now, this is a movie reference, Chris, so I don't,
Yeah, yeah, I'm
I do
lost.
not expect you to get it, but
Mm-hmm. I need
okay,
translation.
here we go. In the movie Back to the Future 2,
Mm-hmm. Part two.
Part 2, Marty had traveled to the future and thinking, okay, well, here's a way for me to become rich and famous. Well, rich, rather. What am I talking about? I think,
The sports
yes,
almanac.
there, you know this. Great.
I know
I
that
just
bit.
flubbed by saying famous, but yet you knew the movie reference, so now everything's okay. He wanted to be rich, so he brings it back to the past, and over the course of the series of events, of it getting taken by this person, lost, up and ding, 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 it gets a false cover on it, causing much confusion and hijinks, but adding to the movie's allure. So, what I do is I use a false cover when I read my comics as to not get fingerprints or anything on them. A lot of times I'll take like two paper towels and it already has a perforation in the middle, and I fold it and I set the
Mm-hmm.
comic in there and then I read it. But anything could be applicable. Let's say you get some bills in the mail that you opened and you're very disheartened by. You can take one of those pieces of paper, fold it in half, put your comic in there, like the meat in your taco is your comic, and you read
Mm-hmm.
from there. So therefore, I call it the Biff Tannen method, as being inspired by
Okay.
Back to the Future 2. So any shop that sells food or encourages eating or drinking around comics to me is completely, oh God, horrifying. When they should be shut down, their permits should be yanked immediately and taken away. I cannot stress that enough. Two,
I think I usually see like Monster Energy drinks at comic shops.
no,
Probably for the people coming to game. I wouldn't drink. It's like blood and metal.
yeah,
But
no, just don't do it. Can you imagine?
yeah,
Because you just like triggered me. Okay, well, it's a Monster Energy drink. What's the big deal? There's condensation, people, on that can.
it's true. It's
Don't get your
true.
condensation fingers on the books. Don't do that. I don't even want you digging, like with plastic, shielded covered books, and you get sticky Cheeto fingers or something. Oh, the horror. Oh my god.
Delightful.
Now, number two, since I cannot specifically cite a comic shop where the name has particularly impressed me, I will say I did live in Mexico for a couple years, and something I found fascinating was their complete and utter just ignoring copyright, trademarks, or anything of the like when they name
Hmm.
businesses. So, if you have a taco stand, burger stand on the side of the street, one time I saw a place called Breaking Burgers with the exact logo of the TV series Breaking Bad. You can't do that
Nice.
stateside. You're going to get sued. There's no way you
Mm-mm.
can't
Hmm.
franchise that. I saw another place, Kiss Burger. Some of you might be rock and roll fans and be familiar with the legendary rock group known as Kiss. Well, there you go. Gene
Hmm.
Simmons' face, tongue sticking out right on the side of the taco truck.
That makes you
Oh,
hungry.
yeah, does it ever? It really does.
Mm.
But still, the fact that they are trying to market with other people's brands or names is amazing. Now, Breaking Burger I found very clever.
Hmm.
And could you get away with something like that here? That'd be fantastic. But I'm sure the producers or makers of Breaking Bad would say, "Hey, that's ours."
No,
Yeah,
no.
no, no.
Hmm.
But yeah, I can't really cite a comic shop where I'm like, "Wow, that's great." Like that was punny, man.
Mm.
How about you?
Yeah. Out here in Arizona, we had a pretty big comic shop. So big that I knew about them before we moved out here because they would advertise in Wizard magazine.
Oh, hello.
And that was Atomic Comics, which I thought was a cool name.
Okay.
They had a cool logo, like a biohazard sort of thing, Actually, hold on a second.
And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. He's on the run again. On the run from the law. This
Hmm.
man is a hazard. That's what he is. He's a criminal. Oh,
Yeah,
hi.
it's this one right here. They had a recent resurgence until I guess they realized they no longer can call it that because somewhere else did, so they had to change it. But while they when they reopened, they did reopen under the old name, so they handed these out, which is I thought that was a pretty cool name. Um, Probably not the coolest though. That one would go to one that I went to back in New York during the like the glut of the speculator era, where shops were opening up like almost monthly. I remember there was a time where me and my buddies could walk, and within about an hour and a half of walking, we'd be able to go to like five or six comic shops because they were just
Wow.
everywhere. Yeah, like every mile or so in our neighborhood, there were comic shops. And one of them was a little further out, but it was called Heroes on the Half Shelf, and I thought that was kind of
That is.
clever.
That's not bad.
Yeah, yeah. But that's really it. We don't really have every. It's usually like somebody's name comics. Like out here we have like a Brandon's Comics, a Greg's Comics. We have a Gotham City Comics, Samurai Comics. I mean, not anything as punny or inventive, I guess.
Well, I mean, I always talk about the comic store from back home.
Hmm.
That's Entertainment, which has two
Hmm.
locations.
That was the name of a video store back where came
Yeah,
from.
well, they also you can call it That's E, but they call themselves a pop culture emporium, and that is true. And I miss that shop so much,
Mm-hmm.
so much. But that was a great name, despite it being linked to a video store in your neck of the woods.
Or or street drugs.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah,
That's E.
that's E, baby. Not that we're recommending that. Don't do it.
No, never.
Chris is not endorsing the use of illegal narcotics, or is he?
Crack is
It
whack.
is
Crack is
indeed.
whack.
But yeah, so sorry for the lackluster answer, Chris.
Yeah, but the question is still open to anybody who stumbles upon this video, now or later. Let us know. Let us know. Clever names. We love puns. We're big Peter David fans,
Indeed.
so clearly we enjoy puns.
Big fan of his blood
So
sugar.
let us know.
So anyway, yeah, badabinshow at gmail.com. All right, emails. What's
Hmm.
next on the docket?
Yes, our friend Eric, he wrote in and he said, I did not know that Chris was a big manga
Hello.
fan. I recently started reading manga in the past 2 or 3 years. I like Solo Leveling and Demon Slayer. I also read, oh boy, I got to say words here, Jujutsu Kaisen, and like most people, I have no idea what's happening each chapter. I've read several other mangas, but most get canceled or I just lose interest, so I have to scale back a bit. But I always give a new series a try. I don't read all genres, mostly action adventure. And yes, I do. I don't know how well the machine here will pick this up here, but on this side of the wall here, it's all
Ooh,
manga.
we're going on
I
tour.
think I have like yeah, I think I have like 500-600 volumes over there. But I jump around from genre to genre. That's the cool thing about manga is that well, there are a couple of cool things about manga. First, it's cheap. You could buy like a nice thick tankobon for like $3 or $4 in a used bookstore, and there's no shortage of them because people read them. They're disposable, I guess. People read them and then they just trade them in and get new ones. So I'm a collector, so I hoard everything. So you can really build up a library quickly. Another cool thing about them is that they end. So you have that feeling like if you're watching, say, a Breaking Bad, and you're in the last season of it, there's no guarantees. You're watching The Sopranos, the last season of that. There's no guarantees who's going to survive, who's not going to survive, what's going to happen, who's going to get blown up. It's the sky's the limit. And with manga, they can do that because they're generally finite stories. Even the long running ones are finite in a way. Whereas with Western comics, stories don't end, they just start again. You know? We always get reboots, relaunches, reorigins. The story, we never get a fulfilling or satisfying ending. Um, to go a little into the weeds here, I've recently been picking up a lot of DC books with the cover date October 2011, which is the last pre-Flashpoint, last pre-New 52 month, just to see how some of these stories ended. And I tell you, they didn't. Yeah, have you read any of the last ditch books of the post Flashpoint era?
No, I have not. And actually, that era in particular, I was not reading much or any DC at the time.
Mm-hmm. They are weak,
Yeah.
very very weak. It's like it'll end with like Batman swinging away. It'll say never the end under. It's like come on. You have this. You first of all you're flushing everything down a toilet. So at least give us an ending.
Mm-hmm.
Just pathetic. But with manga, things actually end. People die, characters die, and they don't come back. We don't get a new number one on Death Note or Monster. It's just it ends, and we're okay with it. Um, so that's a cool thing about it. Another cool thing about it is the massive amount of genres that you can receive. I mean, there's four big kind of like wouldn't be the opposite of a subgenre. It'd be like kind of like a macro genre. You have like seinen, shouju, josei, and the other one that I forgot. Um, it's basically books that are aimed toward adult men, adult women, girls, and boys. Shoujo is the one for girls. So from there, you can even splinter further into subgenres where it could be slice of life, it could be romance, could be action, could be superhero, could be supernatural, could be horror, and there's something for everybody. If you want to read sequential art, backwards from from the Western style. So I've really explored different genres there. Like some of my favorite stuff in manga is like comedy romance stuff, which we don't get in Western comics. Like Rumika Takahashi, the one who the lady who did Ranma One Half, My Sonic Hoku, Inuyasha, really fun stuff. Totally different from what you get here, or in the states, I guess. And just really good stories, light stories. There's a lot of horror. There's the Junji Ito stuff, really good stuff as well. I know a lot of people are into like My Hero Academia, which is kind of me and Reggie did an episode on it. I can't speak to it. We only read like the first few chapters of it, but it is what it is. So the sky is really the limit when it comes to what manga can do, and to an extent, what Western comics could do if they were less expensive and less of a barrier of entry. And just, I don't think Western comics readers or fans have it in them to do sort of like short form story chapters told like in an anthological format until they're collected. Like, what anthologies do we have? Is Dark Horse Present still a thing? Do you know that?
Not to my knowledge, no. I mean, there's some
Okay.
horror anthologies out there, but
Hmm.
especially now they're like reviving EC comics. But I know,
The old, yeah.
geez, what was it? Image had Creep Show.
Okay.
Excuse me. But yeah, no, I can't think of many off the top of my head here. No.
Yeah,
No.
because like a lot of the mangas would originate in like these big, thick weekly volumes where you'd get like 8 pages of story for uh, like 15, 16 stories. And then the next week you'd get the next chapters of all of those, and then some would end, they'd be replaced with other stuff. Some would go on break, and there'd be like a hiatus fill in. So it's a really interesting way to receive comics. I'm not sure I'd be able to keep up with that. I mean, you go to the comic shop and you plunk down all this money to buy 10 comics,
Mm-hmm.
or you get this one big thick trade, this big thick magazine catalog thing where every week where there's 8 pages of all your stories in it. It's interesting. It's different for sure, and not something I think would happen here. I mean, I spent a year talking about Action Comics Weekly, which was an attempt, sort of, kind of, an attempt at serialized storytelling in a weekly basis, and it wasn't great. A lot of it was not great, but yeah, manga's fun. And if you're in a money crunch, you get a lot of bang for your buck when you do manga. I can't say that I've read Solo Leveling or Demon Slayer, so I don't know. Uh, Eric continues, so I can stop talking. Um, Have either of you ever went searching through bins and pulled out almost an entire run, and then the shop owner just made up a price that was way less than what they priced on the books? I had this happen to me with the pre-Flashpoint Nightwing series. I didn't find every issue, but most. That sounds like the dream right
It
there.
is. It really is. And something like that happened to me.
Hmm.
I was, geez, late teens, early 20s.
Hmm.
And I had lost a lot of my comic collection to water damage in my grandmother's basement. I had moved away to Maine. I was living in
Hmm.
Massachusetts. And I got the bad news. Hey, your comic collection got decimated downstairs. And I'm like, oh,
Oh,
man, are
jeez.
you kidding me? And
Ugh.
I'm living in Portland, Maine at the time. And they had like a little expo flea market thing. It was indoor at like an event center, and every
Hmm.
week this guy would be there. He had a bunch of long boxes, and one day I just walked in and I was like, "Oh man, you got all this great!" And this is the PAD Hulk Dale Keown era stuff. No, it wasn't very old at that time, so I guess in one aspect you could think, well, then it should be overpriced because it's still fairly new and fresh, and the hype train is still rolling all over it. But the
Sure.
other hand, you go, well, it's still fairly new. It hasn't had any significance yet to the point where someone would be like, yeah, this is worth $20 per issue. Whichever way
Mhm.
you'd stand on the issue, this guy was just utterly fair. And he saw I was just like piling, making a big fat stack, trying to reassemble a collection. And he was like, man, for the love of the game, was something I like to say. And he was like, yeah, what do you say? $15 for that whole stack. I'm like, dude,
Oh,
I have like
wow.
35, 40 books
Mhm.
here. You know what I mean? You're selling to me for pennies on the
Mhm.
dollar. And he's like, yeah, but
Sure.
you get a bunch of Hulk there. You love it, so you help me move stuff. There you go. And
Oh,
I don't
wonderful.
remember the guy's name, which is so unfortunate. Um, we did not endorse using illegal substances, but I was heavily influenced by them at the time. Hence my lack of remembering some specifics. But I'll tell you what, that guy, if I saw him today and he's like, "Hey man, you remember me in the Hulk comics?" I'd
Mm.
hug him.
I bet his name wasn't Chuck
No,
Rosansky.
his name was not Jack Rosansky, but and he didn't have a long ponytail in the back. He wasn't from Mile High. He,
Hmm.
but no, man, I would just be like, dude, like I do not. I appreciated it at the time,
Oh yeah,
but like now looking back, decades
the weight
later,
of
and you're
it.
just like,
Yeah.
wow, this guy loved comics. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
He
Hmm.
loved comics, and it was just the most important thing to him was making sure,
Passing on the
yeah.
joy.
And this kid,
Yeah.
who's like, yeah, all my comics got ruined in a basement. He's like, I feel sympathy for you, guy. There you
Hmm.
go. Let me help you rebuild your collection. He made a few bucks. He didn't make a ton of money, but he made
Sure.
my freaking day,
Made.
man.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. I wish I had a story. My stories are always the opposite.
Mm.
Where I find stuff in the bins and it's like, oh wait, we're repricing right now, and then the house always wins
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Except they don't because I put everything back.
yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, that's an awesome
I
story.
mentioned though before, I think on air, how one of my favorite shops in the Dallas area now. First time I walked in, the dude was like, when someone else was checking out, oh, let me hit
Hmm.
eBay. Let me see how much this is going for. And I'm like, wait, what?
No, no, no,
Whoop.
no, no.
Red flag gone.
Yeah.
And I went
Hmm.
back on a whim, and he had a bunch of Adventures of Superman I needed. So I grabbed yet again a fat
Hmm.
stack, and he looked at me and goes, "Wow, man, you really dig the Superman stuff." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, what do you say? $1.50, $2?" And I'm like, "Wait, what?" Thinking he's gonna be like
Nice.
going on his phone, but he turned
Sure.
out to be a pretty cool guy, and I visit his
Hmm.
shop on the regular now. So what
Hmm.
happened that initial day? I guess I caught him in the
Yeah.
wrong moment, I suppose. But
Maybe.
anytime you
Maybe.
walk into a store, man, and they want to look online to price something, get the hell out of there.
Red flag.
Mine was needle in a haystack. The fact that I still go back there and I have a good relationship with the guy,
Hmm.
and he does give me a square deal every time out,
Hmm.
pretty much. I say 99.9% of the time. But I mean that's
Sure.
lightning in a bottle stuff.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, if you find a shop like that, support that shop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah, if they got your back, we got to have theirs.
yeah, absolutely. So it is unfortunate that you get the repricing stores.
Yeah, I mean and it doesn't happen often,
Uh,
but like usually when prices are amended on the fly, it's to bring them up.
mhm.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Back to Eric. He says, "What's your opinion on Batman being in a relationship in today's continuity?
Spicy.
Do you feel like he should be with Catwoman, Zatanna, or maybe someone like Vicky Bale or Silver Saint Cloud? Do you think it's even possible for him to be in a relationship with today's continuity? I personally think he should be in a regular non-superhero supporting character with a non-superhero supporting character like Vicky Vale. I think it would add to the story I think it would add to the story like it used to during pre-Flashpoint. So, what are your thoughts on Bat relations?
Well, first off, Eric, my man, my homeboy, I think he was the reason why we discussed headcanon a few
Yes,
episodes
yes,
back.
with the crises
Yeah, exactly.
is.
And we were just like, man, continuity's dead, bro. Let it go, man.
Mhm.
So to say that in the context of like, do you think it'd work in continuity and whatever? I am personally. This was actually something I probably would have thought of bringing up more in a more expansive way on a different episode.
Mhm.
But I am not big into team books per se.
Mhm.
Depending on the character. I mean, listen, I love Justice League International. Okay,
Mhm.
great team book, bwahaha stuff, love it, yada yada yada. But if you take, for example, Swamp Thing and put him in Justice League Dark,
Mm.
it's not really my bag. You know what I mean? Same
Mhm.
thing with the Bat Family, where things have grown so much where
It's almost parody.
it really, really is. Where you think, okay,
Yeah.
Batman and Robin, okay, Batgirl, whatever, but now it's just, dude, there's like 20 members. And same thing with
You
Superman.
couldn't invite them to Thanksgiving.
The thing
Yeah.
that drove me crazy about the Hulk, yeah, they couldn't be invited to jump in the leaf pile in X-Men 308.
It's true. It's
But the
true.
Hulk, where they had a Hulk of every color, variety, I've talked about this. I mean, I
Hmm.
won't go back there again. But being in relationships long term, I don't really think is something I'm very interested in as a reader. There are notable exceptions because they are just concrete parts of the character. For example, Superman.
Like a Lois and
There we
Clark.
go. You took the
Yeah.
words out of my mouth. That's
Hmm.
something that just peas and carrots. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But for Batman in particular, we're talking about a character who's very dark, brooding, lonesome, is afraid that everybody he brings into the fold, well, used to be, was going to die,
Yeah.
or he's putting someone in danger. And I think one of the things about Death in the Family that was important was, and stayed with the character for a little while, was with Jason Todd's demise, that made him even wearier of inviting
Hmm.
anybody to fight crime with him. But if
Oh
he
yeah,
needs,
and it happened so quick with a
yeah,
Killing Joke. They're like in succession,
yeah,
two major losses. Yeah.
yeah, well, exactly. There you go, right with Barbara. But
Hmm.
as far as the Batman booty call, is that what we're talking about now? Since I've established that I'm not really into,
Romantic entanglement.
yeah, I don't
Yes.
know, man. I don't really have a preference, so that's kind of a cop out. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know, man. Why don't you step in and help me out? Because my immediate thought is
Okay.
like, okay, well, he had a kid with Talia, so maybe it's got to be her. Because and
Hmm.
Catwoman, oh my God, it's so ingrained in the character. This whole love it, but I'm not committal on it. Like Batman shouldn't be with women.
No, that I was just about to say something along those lines here. I remember I like the idea of like a bat flirtation,
Mm-hmm.
like when Sasha Bordeaux was brought in as his bodyguard
Oh, I don't remember that.
around the time. That was around the time of like Bruce Wayne Fugitive and Bruce Wayne Murderer.
Okay.
Um, like she was his bodyguard. She discovered the secret, of course, and there was like a weird like not really a romantic thing between them, but there was a flirtation, like where like she became not so much obsessed with him, but like she thought about him a lot, and like their relationship kind of got squirrely, where it wasn't completely professional. I mean, she even went out and like fought crime with him with a mask on for a bit, and it was like these weird layers of relationship. Where I think that's kind of the sweet spot for Batman because, like you said, anybody he brings in is at a risk, and he's at a risk of losing them or hurting them or having them maimed. And so the idea of him being in a full blown relationship, I I didn't read the Tom King stuff, so I don't know how the Catwoman thing happened. I heard from people who did, and it was kind of split. Some people dug it.
Mm-hmm.
Some people were like, "This feels really forced and silly. This feels like it's goes against the characters. And again, I can't speak to it. I won't even lie and say I read that because I
Right.
didn't. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, in No Man's Land, he has this sort before No Man's Land. He's like with Vesper Fairchild. There's a sort of relationship there. She doesn't know the secret, but I don't know. And I mean, one of the few things about the Batman movie that I remember is like he meets Vicky Vale, and like the next day he brings her to the Batcave. It's like, what?
Well, no, he tried to keep the
Don't get it.
secret going there. So it's not as immediate as you're letting people believe. Okay, Chris,
Hmm.
come on now. It wasn't just
I'm lying about seeing it.
okay. All right.
No, no, I saw it 100 years ago.
All right. All right. Well, I don't know, man. You know what? I feel bad because all these email responses we're giving, I feel like I'm very just like, I'm not sure. Why?
I mean, we don't want to. That's the way a lot of
Hmm.
conversations go. And again, we're not
No, but I'd love
experts.
to be like, dude, it's Vicky
We
Vale.
don't.
Hands down, man.
We don't
Boom.
purport ourselves.
Yeah, like, dude, Eric, it's Vicky Vale all the way. I'm gonna give you concrete reasons why right now. Here are the 10 reasons why she just.
You won't believe number
Yeah, yeah,
seven.
you won't believe it. It was David Letterman like throwing the cards, the top 10 list of why Batman should be with Vicky Vale.
Stupid bat tricks.
But I would prefer if he was relationship free, like long term.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When they were doing the wedding build-up, I was like they can't go, and of course they didn't go through with it.
Mm.
But it's like it seemed like everybody was adamant that, oh yeah, this is happening. Oh,
Well, here's something
don't
too, man.
know.
And I know like they've overpowered every character beyond belief, but I mean, with Superman and
Mm-hmm.
Lois, Lois could be in danger halfway across the world, and she just whispers Clark, and whew,
Yeah,
Superman's there.
he's there.
Hey, and I grabbed a bagel from France or whatever,
Yeah.
while I kick Metallo's
Yep. We got
ass.
crepes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Batman's a little different, because he's not of
Mm-hmm.
that power set. So when we talk about him endangering people that he loves, it's more, I would think, if you're a writer true to the character and the story, far more legit. Where you get involved with Batman,
Mm-hmm.
the Joker has you. You're
Yeah.
in deep doo doo. You know.
Especially nowadays when we the Joker is like a whole entity unto himself
Mm.
now. I don't even understand what the Joker is
All
now.
right, let's say Clayface 3 has you. Okay, let's make it less Jokerized.
The Mad
Yeah,
Hatter.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Scarface.
Mad Hatter 2.
Right.
Yeah.
So there you go. But that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it, brother.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Does Eric continue, or is that the end of the email?
Nope, nope.
That was it.
That's it. That's it. He just thanks us for the
Hey.
show and says he looks forward to it, and we thank him for watching. I was going to say listening. We thank him for listening and
Right.
watching, and for joining the conversation.
Absolutely, man. I like emails. I want more
Mm,
emails.
me
You
too.
know,
Emails are fun.
Chris, you always send solid stuff. Eric hits
Hmm.
us with some good stuff. But yeah, let's get
Hmm.
more you folks out there. I know you're watching. Let her rip. You know,
Hmm.
ask me anything. It doesn't have to be about comics. If you didn't notice,
Yeah.
I'm actually about an inch taller than I was a few minutes ago because I'm so old. I was sitting in my chair doing this YouTube live thing,
Hmm.
and my ass started to hurt.
There you
Feel free to
go.
ask me
Don't
about
get
that.
old, people.
Yeah, that was. I wish that was as easily done as said, Chris.
It's true.
Don't get old, people.
It's true.
Okay, no problem.
Well, I mean, I guess the alternative is not much better.
Yes, well, you can Benjamin Button it. But yeah, so there you go. That's what
Mm.
happened. I transitioned to Chris reading emails so I could prop a pillow underneath my buttocks.
There you
Now
go.
look at me.
There you go. And I just fidget by putting my leg up and then resting on my leg and
Yeah. Well, I don't
yeah.
spare you the indignity of having people watch you do that like I did with the pillow. I'm in control
There
here,
you
so I
go.
switched over. I'm like, oh, let me get off screen
True.
so I can.
I don't understand technology or
Mm.
computers.
All right, Chris. Well, what else do we have for today? Anything? I think that was it, right? There's nothing I'm missing.
I think we hit all our points here. I wanted to pull up one weird thing I found at a
Oh yes,
store this
please.
weekend.
Yes, absolutely.
A little piece of ephemera here, a very nebulous piece of ephemera. Like we've all seen the Overstreet price guides, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You know, God only knows what an Overstreet price guide for 2023, 2024 looks like
Mm,
now. I'd imagine it's like 7,000 pages with all the variants.
right.
Have you looked at any
I would
recently?
not, so I have not.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the last Overstreet I saw was like in the 90s. So I haven't the foggiest idea how those things are formatted now
Mm-hmm.
to include like 17 versions of every single comic. So I don't know, but we've seen them. We know what they are. They are in the ether as comic book enthusiasts. But I was at the record store on Saturday, and I went to their little clearance section where they keep some books, and I found a comic art price guide, which is bizarre. Because how do you evaluate original art? You know, you figure that's got to be difficult. And this is from I think the year 2000, maybe 1999. So it's very wildly out of date. I mean, comics were not. I mean, comics still aren't a big deal, but comic investment is a big deal. So like you'll see like the weirdest stuff here, like full pages of like Silver Age Superman. The value is like $800. Could you imagine getting like a 60-year-old original
Mm.
page of Superman art for like under a grand?
That's tough to say because yet again, I have no idea what any of that should be or could be
Exactly.
worth. You know, and I
But I
wouldn't
mean, everything is
trust the book either.
these are all one of a kind. Oh no, the book is
Yeah.
nuts. But it's like a one of a kind thing. How do you? I wouldn't even know how to start. There's some fun information in here about how to collect original art, going to auctions. Like there's auction etiquette here, and like there are a couple of goofballs going to an auction here, dressed to the nines, as comic fans ought or usually do. Nice. What do you call his belt?
I believe I referred to it as an e-spirit or I don't even know how to say that. Esprit,
Esprit.
Esprit or
Yeah,
something belt. It's like, but
one of
it was a
those things.
lady's belt. It was like so thin.
It looks like a yeah, like a thin white belt that he's wearing
Yeah,
there.
it's something else.
He's got his shirt tucked into his high rise jeans. It's
We made fun of
wearing
his.
his LA
Yeah,
gear.
you said L.A. Gears. I said kangaroo.
Yeah, he's wearing the
Yeah, the
ruse,
ruse, but they were definitely he's. What is his name?
a
Tom.
fashion plate. It's either Tom or Jerry,
Yeah. Okay.
but a real fashion plate.
Sure.
But I mean, there's information here about like comic strip collecting, and like there's pictures of like the first Superman daily strip, which was cut and pasted from Action Comics #1, and how there's questions of like what the second panel of it is because it's missing and it's been missing forever. So like there's different theories on what the second panel ought to be, and very interesting stuff. At least in the front half, the price guide. I mean, as just a weird oddity, it's just it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I see this for $1. I was like, okay, yeah, I kind of need that on a shelf somewhere
Hmm.
because it's just so weird.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like that's a question I always like to ask if people find ephemera. Like, what's your tipping point for ephemera? Like, because I mean, if this was $5 or $10, I'm not sure how I would have bought
Yeah.
it.
Right.
But there are lesser things that I have spent more money on because it's just to have it,
Yeah.
just as a weird little novelty. And I actually brought one more here that I meant to bring out last time when we showed Chris Yu's physical letter, and we joked like, "Oh, he put a stamp
Yes.
on this," and that's this collection of stamps that I found in a bin for I think it was like $5. But it was from the launch of the DC superhero stamps, and it even comes with a little envelope with a stamp on it already. It was from the day of release. I thought that was pretty cool. Um, Now, if I would have seen that for $20, I might have bought it.
Really.
Because yeah, it just looks so cool,
Okay.
and it's something I've never seen in real life before. I mean, I've never seen the comic art price guide in real life, but I mean, how much use am I going to get? How much use am I going to get of anything? But I don't know. I think it's just a different metric.
Yeah. It's almost like it'd be a talking piece or something if you actually did, in fact,
Sure,
display it. you know?
if I
Yeah,
frame it,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Like if someone walked into your office, like, oh, cool, what's that? Compared to if you had the
yeah,
whatever auction art thing, whatever, just sitting on a shelf.
yeah, on a
Yeah,
shelf.
okay.
Yeah,
You know, I wonder who paid full
because you'd
price
actually
for
have to
that.
like read on the shelf for because the full price of the comic art
Yeah,
price guide is $26 and ninety
yeah. Who
five cents.
needed that back in 2000 or whatever? It's like, hey, how
Who?
else am I going to price out
Yeah,
what I'm looking to buy? How else am I going to dress when I go to an
yeah,
auction?
Yeah, I mean, there's some like pretty cool images in here though, like original art, framed and stuff. Just it's the ephemera.
Mm,
It's the ephemera that some really dated ads in here where everybody has like an AOL.com
yeah,
email address.
right.
So yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah, and all for a buck. All for one
All for
hard-earned dollar.
$1.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
Mm-hmm.
probably going to be destined for the trash bin if you didn't buy it
Oh,
that
I'm
day. Yeah,
sure.
exactly.
Yeah, if I didn't buy it Saturday, Sunday it was probably going in the
Yeah.
bin, in the recycling bin. Yeah.
Well, that's you and your ephemera, buddy.
Yeah,
We've talked about it
that's
quite a bit.
me.
You love all this weird, random stuff just floating around.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I'm still looking at my Chicago front porch press
Yeah,
newspaper.
that you did in fact dig out of the
Silliness.
trash, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
wasn't even a dollar.
yeah. It was a at a comic shop. There was just a pile of old newsprint with like old comics buyer's guides in it.
Hmm.
Just crap. I was like, I saw that, and I don't know why I flipped through, but I saw that Wortham ad, and I was like, okay, I need to have this in my
Yeah.
house.
How long did it take to comb the paper mites out of your beard?
Hmm. Work in
Yeah, there
progress.
you go. They're still thriving in there, buddy. Give them some water. Refresh them. Yeah.
Yes.
Very cool, man. Now,
Yeah.
in regards to our next episode, because we like to talk about this
Hmm.
stuff on air before we sign off, we don't know when we're hitting
Sure.
the air, do we? Because I
Hmm.
am back to work, so I am working for the man,
Hmm.
just slaving away. So hopefully, beginning of next week, right? Unless you
Hopefully.
want to do a nighttime episode, would anybody be interested in Bada Bin After Dark?
After dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because next week we are going on vacation Thursday, so I'll be gone Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Okay, so we'll try to.
See, short vacations. Short
Hey, as long as
vacations.
you got your cool down period, you're tempering,
Hmm.
you're good to go.
Got to temper my
There you
egg.
go,
Yep.
temper that egg. So I don't know. We'll see you when we see you, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. We will be
Yeah,
back. I
exactly.
think that's from a movie, right? We'll be
That's old
back.
T2 or Terminator.
I never seen it.
Yeah,
Never
I know
seen it.
you haven't. But yeah, so let's shoot for the beginning of next week. Hopefully, I'm going on a big hunt on Friday. So
Very cool. So you can share your bounty
that's my plan. That's the whole.
and your
Yes,
tribulations.
exactly. What I had to go through the hellish
Mm-hmm.
conditions to
Mm-hmm.
go yet again
Yep.
pray
Crawl under the barbed wire.
pray at
Yep.
the altar of the bins, baby. That's what it's all about. That's what all I want to do.
Kirby with
Oh
you.
yes. Don't get started on that because then we're gonna get into Peter David's blood sugar again, and that's private conversation stuff, or at least it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike the chili dog story, which we guarantee will be spoken about next episode, so you don't want to miss it. All
Okay.
right.
Okay. We'll do
There you
chili
go.
dogs.
Chili
next time.
dog is we're gonna have it. So I guess we should close, man. And I want to thank
Yeah.
everybody for taking the time to tune in. So make sure you reach out.
Absolutely.
We keep saying it all the time. badabinshow@gmail.com
Mm-hmm.
is the best way to reach us and let us know your thoughts or
Mm-hmm.
suggest things and topics and questions that we may have non-committal answers to. So
Mm-hmm. Usually.
yes, so that's the best way to do things. Chris, though, before we do go, I do want to say you look very dapper today.
Hey. It's
I
one of my summer shirts.
There you
here.
go.
Yeah.
You were definitely in the summer vibes before you head into vacation,
Yeah.
so it's all good
When
stuff.
it's 113 degrees, you gotta
There you
assimilate.
go. Is that a full cotton or is it a blend?
It's a $6 Target shirt,
Okay.
so I don't
I was
know.
going to be very impressed if you knew off the top of your head. This is 70% polyester,
Mm-hmm.
30% cotton.
We'll go
And I'd
with
be
that.
like, getting old does suck because that's when you pay attention. Gas prices and the material in your shirt. All right, then. For
Mm-hmm.
Chris, I am Dave, and we've had a lot of fun. We will see you next time.